Okay. I'd like to have the meeting called, we have a roll call from our town clerk.
Councilwoman Albrecht? Here. Councilman Mazzella?
Here.
Councilman O'Hanlon?
Here.
Councilman Reifenberg?
Here.
Supervisor Delvecchio?
Here.
Town Attorney Emily Swenson? Here. Town Attorney Warren Raplansky? All present.
Thank you. Adoption of the agenda as follows, but I believe we have some amendments to it today.
Yes.
Who's first?
I'd like to put in for a special request for consideration for advertising for the rec committee. We still need someone for the rec committee, and I'd like to put that back in.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
And then I would also like to advertise for a clerk position for the recreation office. And we do have a spot in our position listing for it, and it would still be 20 hours a week, as we had already put in for the budget.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
I'm just going to pull the presentation from Granicus, just because they weren't able to get me the information I needed in a timely manner. And then I'll make a motion to do you want these under old business or new business?
Whatever you want.
Well, I'll make a motion to add 2 items under old business discussions. One being discussing the Bodnar application, and the other one discussing the local law adoption for junk cars. So basically, discussions about our public hearings.
I second it. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I make a motion, we adopt the agenda.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so this is our public hearing. I am in receipt of the affidavit of posting pertaining to the resolution accepting the application of Richard Bodnar, Barbara B. Bodnar, and Nancy B. Funt for approval of an open development area and variance from the Town Code 46-3A for the properties located at Martin Road and Barbara Lane, tax maps numbers 6363-12, -783678, 6363-12, -782692, 6363-12, -815709, and 6363-12, 826678. So at this time, I believe we're going to call up the Bodnar folks. You got to hit the button.
Yeah, there we go. Rebecca Volk of the Law Office of Rebecca Volk. For the applicant, I'm here with Eric Rogie from Hudson Land Design, whose plans are here before the board. Some of this is a little bit of a repeat of what I discussed with you in December, but the public's here, so I'm going to go over it again. So the property is located on Martin Road and Barbara Lane. The total property comprises 4 lots of 8.2 acres and is located within the town's Hamlet residential zoning district. The applicant is seeking to reduce the 4 lots to 3 of 2.1 acres, 2.87 acres, and 3.22 acres. The applicant had hoped to be here tonight, but he was unable to get here. He lives in the south at this time. The Bodnar family had actually purchased this back in 1941, and properties lying around what forms the application actually created this subdivision. The Bodnars retained these 4 lots, and at this time are seeking to as I said, reconfigure them. So there are 2 forms of relief that we need from the town board. The first is due to the presence of steep slopes along Martin Road, a common driveway is proposed to serve the 3 parcels from Barbara Lane. As you can see here on the map, you can see the proposed common driveway and the proposed layout for each home. So the first requested form of relief is from your town code in that the proposed driveway will not have an unobstructed sight distance of 300 feet minimum to 400 feet maximum in either direction to be determined by posted speed limit. This shall be measured from a point 12 feet in from the edge of the town highway. The proposed site distances for the shared driveway are 105 feet to the road crest towards the east and 165 feet to the road curve towards the west. The proposal to have a common driveway is within the spirit of your code that encourages shared driveways where appropriate to maintain rural character and provide an economical and attractive method of serving up to 4 homes. As I stated before, the proposed driveway, however, does not meet Section 46-3A. The code gives no discretion to the highway superintendent to consider site distance outside of these parameters, which I will state is somewhat unique for the town of Pleasant Valley. Other codes do give their highway superintendent some discretion. And I know that there was some citation to Dutchess County DPW, and I'll get into the discretion that's granted there as well. Therefore, under your code 46-311, an application must be made to the town board for a variance. It's our position, with no other guidance in the code, that the matter is to be treated as an area variance, and the criteria similar to what the Zoning Board of Appeals would apply should be applied here. So the first factor is whether an undesirable change will be produced in the character of the neighborhood or a detriment to nearby properties will be created by granting the area variance. During the initial planning board review, the proposed shared driveway onto Barbara Lane was actually moved slightly to the east to achieve the 165-foot site distance to the east and 105 feet to the west, which serves as the crest of Barbara Lane. Barbara Lane is not a through road and generally will not have traffic other than the homes that currently front it. We respectfully submit that consideration should be given to actual conditions, including that a portion of Barbara Lane has a significant uphill grade, that it also has a significant curve on it. It is a short road, and our engineer opines that it is unlikely for vehicles to be traveling at the 30-mile-per-hour speed limit. A more reasonable maximum speed based upon actual conditions would be 15 miles per hour, and this is almost certainly faster than most vehicles are traveling. AASHTO design stopping sight distance for 15 miles per hour is 80 feet, which we are able to achieve, and we attach that standard to our submission. It is our opinion that the driveway will have an acceptable sight distance based upon vehicle speeds expected due to road geometry, that a majority of the vehicles are from houses on this road and which are familiar with the road, and the presence of existing driveways with less sight distance. We have also provided in our submission an identification of driveways on Barbara Lane and their current sight distances. As shown from that list, the proposed sight lines for the property would be greater than the lowest distances on the street. The shared driveway conforms to the intent of the town code and will lessen the impact on the neighborhood that will result from 2 or 3 driveway entrances. So there is no chance to a change to the character of the neighborhood. Before I get to the second criteria of the area variance, I just want to touch upon the comments that were received today by the highway superintendent, in which in some, he states that it's not reasonable to assume that the speed on Barbara Lane would be 15 miles per hour because the posted speed limit is 30 miles per hour, and also cites to the Dutchess County DPW standard for sight distance of 335 feet. So there are 2 points I want to make here. The reason that your maximum speed limit on Barbara Lane is 30 miles per hour is because up until August of last year, that is the only maximum that you could have on roads. The governor recently signed legislation that now allows municipalities to lower their speed limits to 25 miles per hour. However, that did not exist before August of last year. That was the default maximum. Secondly, while information was cited to Dutchess County DPW, I think what may not have been given enough attention is that The page 13 of Dutchess County's own guidelines for driveways states, and I quote, "Exceptions or deviations from this policy shall be reviewed and granted on a case-by-case basis at the department's discretion to promote safety and the intent of the policy." Further, there's also a procedure in this policy that would allow for the traffic to be evaluated to determine actual conditions. So I would just ask the board to consider this does not need to be an all or nothing solution here, and I would say that I don't really know that it's appropriate to completely strike out the option for any driveway, because that would really render this property completely useless at this point, because even the properties that are fronting do not have any current constructed driveways on them. Going to the next factor, whether benefits sought by the applicant can be achieved by some method feasible for the applicant to pursue other than an area variance, and that simply does not exist in this scenario. Your code does not give any discretion on this factor, and I would note that evaluation was done of a potential driveway on Martin Road, and an area variance would also be needed for the sight line on that. The next factor is whether the requested area variance is substantial, and whether a variance is substantial, focus should not be only on the numerical value of the variance, but upon its actual impact. The variances requested are for 190 feet to the left, 65%, and 135 feet to the right, which would be 45%. Again, however, it is submitted that consideration should be given to actual conditions, including the hill and the sharp turn that exist on Barbara Lane. Considering the conditions that contribute to slower travel and the proposed sight line that is within AASHTO standards, the variance is not substantial. The fourth factor is whether the proposed variance will have an adverse effect or impact on the physical or environmental conditions in the neighborhood or district. The addition of one further driveway with similar sightline distances to other properties is not expected to have any adverse effect or impact on the physical or environmental conditions. And then number 5 is whether the alleged difficulty was self-created, which consideration shall be relevant to the decision of the board, but does not necessarily preclude this board from granting relief. The variance is not self-created. The Bodner family has owned these parcels since the late 1940s, when the town approved the subdivision of the family farm. The town adopted the 300-foot minimum to 400-foot maximum, it appears, for the first time in 2001, according to my research, and I've attached that local law to our submission. Therefore, the variance is not self-created when ownership of the property was prior to the relevant code section. In addition to the variance from the sightline, the applicant also requires from this board the granting of an open development area because the lots will not have frontage directly onto a town road, whereas they are doing a shared driveway, and that also requires relief from this board. Are there any questions?
You're more than welcome. Go right ahead.
Just to backtrack for Martin Road, so you're stating that you looked at putting a shared driveway off of Martin Road and you still couldn't meet the site distances that are required by code?
I'm going to ask Eric if he could respond, because I wasn't involved at the planning board, but that was considered.
Eric Rogie, Hudson Land Design. Yeah, we looked at a shared driveway. This map here. You can see this whole area over here is really steep, so the only place we could come down was up here, which is, there's a crest of a hill right here, so we couldn't meet the site distance going one direction coming out there, plus we would have to deal with a steep hill, erosion, and drainage issues. It seemed like a lot more negatives coming out that way than Barbara Lane.
And when you take out the erosion and stuff like that, that you could potentially mitigate, you couldn't get the site distance with that? Or was it because of those factors that you decided that this would be a better method?
We have to, because of the hill, we got to run along it to get down, which brings us out over here, and the top of the hill was right here. So I think it's tricky to grade. I don't think it's really buildable that way. I can show it on a plan, but I think it's not a good idea just to try to get down there. It's a cliff.
But it still didn't meet the code.
But
No,
that's
no,
what
it
I'm
still
like-
didn't meet the code.
Okay, so it still didn't meet the site distance even with that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Say again?
I don't personally have any questions, but I'm curious as to what all the neighbors have to say.
Yes.
And I would just also note before the public hearing is open that this doesn't approve the lots. It has to go back to the planning board for that step of the application. Sure.
Is there any way to improve the site distance in terms of the vegetation on either side of the driveway entrance? That will,
No, it's a crest of a hill going to the west, and then going to the east, there's a little crest of the hill on the inner side of the curve. That's somebody's yard. But the end of the road is right there anyway.
that
So,
wouldn't help things.
no, you have to lower the road. It's really the only way to make it work.
You have to lower the road.
Lower the whole road.
Could we get a copy of your presentation that you made tonight?
Well, I relied mostly upon my submission, but I can submit the information from Dutchess County DPW that I quoted.
I would just like to have a record of all the points.
That would be great, and I also would note that the applicant is willing to discuss, sometimes you see signs that say driveway approaching, other times you see some lights, though I'm not sure if the neighbors would appreciate lights that would be going on in the evening, and I drove the road myself this evening. It is a very quiet area, so I'm not sure if that would be welcomed or not, but we are willing to discuss any mitigation that would assist in the matter.
Was there any thought to the matter about the wells that might be having to be dug at those sites at all?
Just generally about the need for wells?
It's only 3 wells that would be expected to produce 5 gallons per minute for each, so there's really no, it's such a small amount, you don't usually have to think about it. That's, the minimal amount for a house.
In Pleasant Valley, we think about water all the time.
When we drill the wells, we'll find out.
Okay.
Any other?
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Not hearing any further questions from the board, I'm going to open it up to the public.
Can I just mention, I think it's important that we remember that this board's role is really only with regard to the shared driveway and the open development area. So, if it proceeded past that, then it would go back to the planning board for all those other
Right.
issues.
I'll second John's motion. to open
All in
up.
favor?
Aye.
So folks, anyone would like to get up and speak, please state your name, where you live, and your piece. And we try to, for those of you folks who don't usually visit here, and I see some new faces, we try to keep it direct and to the point if you can. That'd be great. The floor is yours. Why don't you want to kick it off? Go right ahead.
Really?
How we doing tonight? John Baxter, I'm the highway superintendent for the town of Pleasant Valley. I've looked over the application for the Bodner development. I do have a few issues. In fact, to assume that the average speed on a posted road of 30 miles an hour is only going to be 15 miles an hour, I think there's really no basis for it. I drove the road myself again. I've driven it several times. It's very easy to get to 30 miles an hour on either side of that road. Not even gassing it. I mean, you can go around the corner at 20 miles an hour and be in complete control of your vehicle. So the speed is, I think it's unreasonable to assume people are going to do 15 miles an hour in that development. I've worked in development with my highway guys, both on Barbara and on Martin, and I'd like to have a speed gun because, as I'm sure you know, some of our roads are like racetracks. So I understand development when it was broken up in the 50s and 60s. Most of those houses were built. A few were built in the early or late 40s rather. Traffic back then, if anybody's been in Pleasant Valley for more than 20 or 30 years, know that the traffic was a third of what it is now, half of what it is now. It was a lot less. Cars were a lot slower. I think people were a little more courteous. And the town site distance was put into effect to protect people from coming out of a driveway. And when you come up over top of that hill, even if you're doing 15 miles an hour, it's fairly close. I mean, 165 feet is not a long ways. And the traffic numbers that she's stating, you know, with stopping distance and stuff, they're calling for, you know, a flat road, perfect conditions. Barber Lane is anything but flat for anybody who's driven it. You know, it's uphill one way, down the other, no matter which way you're going, and especially with the corner. So, you know, and all the calculated stopping distances, I mean, you know, they're based on safety and keeping our people safe, and I don't think they should be compromised.
Thank you. Anyone else? Please.
I would implore anyone that wants to speak after this gentleman just to stand in line behind him, just to, you know, for the
Yeah, let's start that line thing. I like that. That was, so if you're going to speak, get right up there now. This way we,
Good evening.
please state your name.
My name is Peter Wilkinson. I live at 14 Barber Lane. I've been there since 1978. Some people may know me from the community. One thing which I think is very important for this meeting, in all fairness, it may have been done by all the regulations and everything, but the residents around this property on Barber Lane received a notice about it 2 hours ago. So they all started calling each other. Some of the people were very upset because they couldn't be here for the public comment. So my position, whether they're in favor of it, not in favor of it, they should have the opportunity to speak as a group and anybody else. So I think this public comment section should be postponed to another time. In all fairness, this, I am very, very upset myself that I received this 2 hours ago.
Thank you.
Good evening. Daniel Madsen, 8 Barber Lane. My property is also adjoining. I second Pete's motion for a stay or a delay on the conference because my wife was home when the letter was delivered, certified mail, 4:30 p.m. So 2.5 hours. And that's a working class neighborhood. So most people don't get home until 5:30, 6 o'clock to begin with, families, dinner, et cetera. The only question I have, just in regards to the site distance, you stated that the site distance for the 30 feet, which would be required, isn't met with the current speed limit. But if it was lowered down to 15 miles an hour, that allows for an 80-foot site distance. But the new New York State statute, which would give Pleasant Valley the right to lower it to 25, I didn't catch what that site distance was, and if that's relevant, or if it doesn't even meet that site distance at that speed limit. And other than that, it's just, you know, some other planning board business, which I'm sure will come up because it's rocky land up there. There's extremely poor drainage. A lot of people have issues with erosion. And in addition to the concerns with the wells would be sewage, being that it's a higher elevation than the rest of the neighborhood, and percolation and septics and whatnot with that. So I would like to see tests for that before anything goes forward. I know that's not what the meeting's for, but that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. John, could you just lower that microphone down just for this lovely lady? Thank you so much.
Hi, my name is Rose Flegger, and I am 22 Barber Lane, very, very, very close to the proposed road that's coming in. I really have a lot of issues. One of them is it's going to ruin my property value, that's for sure. And it's so close to my enclosed porch, it's ridiculous. There's a row of trees. I have a concern about that because it's full-grown pine trees. And this is what affords us windbreaking and privacy. And if they go shitting all that down, I won't have either. And the other thing is when they come out of that road, even though they're saying like the peak and everything else, there's way too much time when you're on that road, either side, that you can't see over that hill. There's children playing. So I really have a problem with that too. And the other thing is sewage. I mean, my well is at the back of my property. So do you think I want to have a problem with the water? I don't think so. And that's, really what's upsetting me the most, because it could taint my water. And that's something I didn't plan on having done. And, I totally agree with Peter about postponing this. It's ridiculous how they put this stupid letter in there. For me, it was an hour and a half before this meeting. But still, that's not time to even think about what's going to happen. We weren't really aware of all these proposals and appraisals and everything else. So I think that's all I have to say, that I'm not thrilled at all. I'm really not happy, especially for the fact of the sewer, and especially the fact that that road is going to be going right past my bedroom. So, yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Christina Hopper, and I live on 19 Martin Road since 1992. And since this meeting's just about the site distance, we have a lot of concerns because we looked at the property when it was for sale and the rockiness and all the topsoil, but just about the site distance. If you drove it tonight, maybe people are driving 15 miles an hour, but if anything happens in town, Martin and Barbara are the cut-through to get from west to north. So people go through, and they go through fast. It's unfortunately, that's what happens, and if it gets crowded, they take both of them, so we're concerned about that. And, if this goes further, I guess we'll bring our other concerns to the planning board. So I just wanted to, bring that to your attention.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? Going once, going twice. I'm sorry.
Yeah, just before we make any motions to do whatever with the public hearing, can I just ask the attorneys, who's responsible for sending out the notices for the public hearings? I'm asking our attorneys.
Can you answer that about the public hearing notice?
Public hearing notice, well, this is kind of an unusual situation because this is not a normal public hearing as you would have before the planning board or the zoning board. This is the only exception that I know where the town board actually has jurisdiction to rule on a variance. And we don't have any provisions for the public hearing for the variance in our law. So there was some confusion on the part of the town as to what type of notice to give. The notice that was given was the usual public hearing notice. It was put in the paper and placed on the meeting board and on the website, but it wasn't given to property owners within 500 feet, as you would normally have if you had a variance application to the ZBA. That wasn't done. We got it out as soon as we could. I didn't realize it only came to the neighboring property owners tonight, but we're not going to close the public hearing tonight in any case. The planning board has not yet weighed in. We referred the matter to the planning board for their opinion on the variance application, and they are meeting this week, so we haven't gotten their input. So we're going to adjourn the public hearing for the next town board meeting, so the public will have full opportunity to weigh in on this application. anybody who received late notice or didn't receive notice in time for tonight's meeting will have more than enough time to come to the next meeting or send a letter into the board. So we apologize for that, so don't be concerned. The neighbors will have a full opportunity to weigh in on this.
So I'll make not seeing anybody else wanting to speak, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
This,
Is that the proper?
Yeah, I just wanted to stress that we are going to wait for the planning board to give us their input. We referred this to the highway superintendent, and he did provide us with his input. He also consulted with the town engineer. So we're expecting to get something from the planning board, and then we'll see what the planning board has to say, and we'll appropriately advise the town board after we close the public hearing as to what action to take on this application.
Is the intent to adjourn it to a date certain?
Yes, we have to adjourn it. You want to adjourn it to the next town board meeting?
22nd, because the 20th is a holiday, so the meeting that week is on the Wednesday.
The 22nd is Ash Wednesday.
yeah,
No, I'm telling everybody that 22nd is a holiday. It's a Christian holiday.
Sorry, misunderstood. So we need to vote on when we're going to adjourn it to.
Yes. And we got to figure out when our next meeting is going to be all in that same time frame, is what I'll say, because if our meeting was supposed to be the 22nd, that's Ash Wednesday.
Okay, so in the meantime now, though, we could vote to adjourn it to the regular board meeting, whatever that date may be.
Oh, we need to find the date.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can we just use the
February
fol-
27th?
why don't we?
Yeah, so
Let's do that.
I have it in front of me. I just pulled it up.
there is Monday the 27th, which is the last Monday of the month.
We have it set for, according to the resolution we passed, it's set for March 20th.
That's President's Day.
Sorry,
22nd.
February 22nd.
February 22nd is the date that we have this, we would technically supposed to move, but we want to move that now because that's
Well, it's Ash Wednesday. It's up to the board. I don't mind, but I can't imagine that's going to...
Mary just said that you'd had it before.
We've had it before. I've sat here with ashes on my head.
Okay. I just didn't want it to interrupt it. That's fine. The 22nd's fine.
Okay.
So
Okay,
the
I'll make it work.
22nd, is that
Yeah,
okay with
I may
you?
have a colleague here for me that evening, because I unfortunately have a conflict, but I'll
fine.
make it work.
You can make the 22nd. Everyone else can be here for the 22nd?
I can't.
So as scheduled, we're going to go forth with the 22nd.
So I'll make a motion to adjourn the public hearing on this to resume on February 22nd at 7:05 PM.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
I just realized that Adam's actually looking at this. I'll see if I can move things back.
For the container in our code to have more specificity as to how these public hearings on these types of applications, in case it comes up again, are handled in terms of notice.
I do want to say, I know a lot of you folks did receive it just 2 hours ago. It was sent out, Mary Beth, when did the whole place rush and get it all out? It was Wednesday? So we got the word to send this notice out about midday Wednesday, and I got to tell you, the staff here worked extra hard, got it out on time, so technically by law, they made the law. We do realize that you probably didn't get it until about a couple hours ago, but technically, they did a good job getting it under the gun, so. I want to thank the staff, the clerk's office, and also the planning and zoning office that really worked extra hard to get that done, so. It may feel like to you folks that was, it came like last second, but we got it out, and it was, I guess, 5 days was the allotment, so that was, so. Okay, so we closed the meeting, the public hearing today. We're still open on this one, right? We're going to the next one. We're continuing, right, we adjourned that one. And now I am in receipt of an affidavit of posting pertaining to the containing of the local law adoption process for the proposed local law B of 2022 entitled "A Local Law Repealing Chapter 95 and Amending Chapter 98, Section 98-34 of the town code with regard to the outdoor storage of junk motor vehicles.
I'll just mention, so this is a law that that the board considered last fall, and we had a public hearing, and we took input and made changes based on that input. And so there are some changes, and we decided to reopen it for any final comments. But I just want to point out that the changes that we made were made in consultation with the zoning administrator and also by utilizing state guidance. So that's the source of the language that was inserted. And yeah, that's all. Oh, and also we did receive a comment from Dutchess County Planning, which I just got today. Their only comment, they said it was for local consideration, but they did comment that they thought it would be a good idea to have a permitting process for the exceptions, which is something that I think the zoning office felt that adding extra permitting processes was burdensome, and so that it was better to do it this way.
Okay. So there's no presentation. At this time, we'd like to, I make a motion, we open it up to the public for comment, extra comment.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Floor is yours.
Hello, Katrina Maloney, 22 Coachman. I don't know what you have decided to do about the junk cars, but as far as the law goes, could you explain that to me so that I can,
So
was
essentially,
it in here?
we had really nothing on paper or locally that pertained to people who just like kind of collect junky cars and just put them in the yard and take a part out of it and leave the rest of it there to rot. And there's many, many places in town that have precisely that. We've listened to a lot of the public comment because there are a lot of car enthusiasts in our town. And they have antique cars and classic cars and stuff like that. And then there are folks who utilize parts as well. But I believe the law is to, anything that's not registered or this is hanging around as junk is to be removed, so it's not an eyesore.
Okay, so they're,
That's
Kept in
basically
a
what this,
building.
this, in a nutshell, yeah.
so we can't, they won't be putting them in tents, because I could see that happening all over the town of Pleasant
I
Valley.
believe we didn't put tents down, correct?
So what we said was it can be in any structure that has a certificate of occupancy. So
Okay.
if you want to go through that process with a tent-type structure, that is okay, but it wouldn't, yeah.
But so you would require a certificate of occupancy, which would make it a lot less fun to do. Okay, good. So then my only other comment would be that even though a permitting process might be burdensome, it would create funding for the town if there were going to be exceptions made for that. And that's my only comment. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think there's an exemption for that.
I'm sorry, I'm short. Carol Campbell, 122 Marshall Road. The board knows that I've spoken on this previously. I'd like to start by saying a special thank you to Councilman O'Hanlon and Councilman Reifenberg for reaching out to me today so that we could have a conversation about the proposed law along with some of the changes that I proposed. And thank you very much, Emily, for all the hard work that you put into it. I do recognize that some of the comments that went in this version might have been generated by some of the comments I made at a public hearing, but they missed the mark, which is why I wanted to expand on that. I'm glad that the public hearing notice was put out and that it was read. Thank you, Supervisor, for doing that. My question is, how was the local law published so that the residents of the town had a chance to read it? It's not on the town website that I could find. And I have some people here in the meeting that are asking about the local law and just exactly what it entails because they haven't had an opportunity to see it.
So
I know that it was in the agenda packet when we proposed it, whether, maybe that was when we
I'm
set the
checking to see
hearing.
if it's in the packet online.
It's not in the packet for today, I don't think, but it was in the packet when we, yeah.
Oh, yeah, then I don't know,
Right, it would be in the original packet when we first started the process.
The-
So that the law, when it was,
no,
The law,
No, the revised version, I
That's
mean,
what- yeah,
was
the
in the
revised
packet.
version.
Okay.
Like at 2 meetings ago when we set this hearing, I think. Yeah.
the revised law was in the packet for 12/21. And it was read near the end of the meeting by the lawyer for the town. And that is when I found out that this law had another revision to it, and it's called Print 2. Up until that point, I didn't know that this law had taken another direction. The other thing I wanted to say, let me just go on. I have some people here in the audience, and I'm really glad they came out. The original law has a definition for a junk motor vehicle. And that definition, the one that's proposed, Print 2, let me just put it that way. The definition for a junk motor vehicle is any unregistered motor vehicle in which a registration with DMV is required for operation. I have a bit of an issue with that. I understand that the town wants to make sure there's not junk vehicles on people's property, and let me say, I am 100% behind the town in making sure that we don't have junk on the properties. It devalues property. It's not good to look at. However, I do have a bit of a problem with a single sentence that says any unregistered motor vehicle which is registered by the DMV. I had an opportunity to speak to a lot of residents since August about this junk car law. And people know that I'm a car person, spend a lot of time at car shows, but I had somebody who lives in town actually say to me, I have an old truck that I use on the property, and I don't register it. I plow my driveway, I moved wood on the property. So the way this is written, I interpret it as people needing to have a registration for a vehicle that they keep on their property. And I don't think that's fair to a resident to make them have to go out and put insurance on a vehicle and license it for something they're going to use on their property. My proposed change was more of a definition of what a junk motor vehicle is. Any motor vehicle in such condition or state of repair which renders the vehicle incapable of being driven or operated upon the public highway in its condition immediately without extensive repairs. Any motor vehicle which has been abandoned or junked. I personally feel that that's a better definition of a junk vehicle than just stated that it has to be registered. The other part of the law that I have a problem with is outdoor storage. The way it's written, it says, the placing, maintaining, or keeping in a building or structure with a certificate of occupancy. Now, a couple of questions come to mind. Number one, in order to get a certificate of occupancy, you need to get a permit for a permanent structure. So now what you're going to do is you're going to have all the people in town have to come in here and get a permit for a permanent structure. The intent is to make sure that there's no eyesore on someone's property. The intent should not be to burden the homeowner, the taxpayer, with having to build a building to have something on their property. I decided to go through all of the ordinances in Dutchess County and look at them for guidance. And I think that if you said the placing, maintaining, or keeping in an enclosed building or is otherwise completely shielded from the view of individuals on adjoining private properties, public properties, or streets would suffice. What that gives individual or property owners is the ability to accomplish what the town wants to accomplish. Nobody has to look at a junk car, or nobody has to look at junk. But in the same token, they don't have to apply for a permit, which they would probably have to have a design for and go through all of that and get a certificate of occupancy. Covering a vehicle on all four sides accomplishes the intent and prevents the property owner from being buried in unnecessary costs. The classic and antique cars, as written, and I'm sorry for the people in the audience that haven't had a chance to see this. Maybe the town can make some copies so people can get it or put it on the website. When I came in and I spoke about antique and classic vehicles, I was worried about collectors in this town that are working on an antique or a classic vehicle, which might take years and would not possibly be registered for years. So therefore, I was looking to have something that would suffice for those people. I did some reading. I went on the DMV website to see what a historical plate for a vehicle, what they define. And I made it pretty simple. Antique and classic vehicles, a motor vehicle owned and operated as an exhibition piece or collector item, not used for daily transportation and manufactured more than 25 years prior to the calendar year. I want to note something here. The antique and classic vehicles has entered a new realm, and it's called a collector's vehicle. A collector's vehicle isn't 25 years old, but it might be something that has historical value in the future. It might be something that a collector wants to pick up now because they can get it now and they know it's going to be worth money. So I would have put that in there, but to be honest, I couldn't find a real definition to do that. These three things that I propose are easily handled if outdoor storage is taken care of. So if the outdoor storage is either in a building, in a shelter logic, which I have. So my question to you is, I have a shelter logic. It's not a permanent structure. As this is, and for people that don't know, it's a tent. It's a tent. It doesn't require a permit. Do I have to come in here and get a permit for my shelter logic? I have a problem with that. The other thing about this law, the way it's written, the way the law was written for classic and collector's cars, it's very expansive. It talks about people not being able to have a classic or collector's car that doesn't meet manufacturer standards. Well, what is manufacturer standards? Hot rods, and I did give the list, the town a list of vehicles that people might have as collector's cars. Antique automobiles, custom vehicles, classic, former military vehicles, replicas. This law as written would not allow a replica. Special interest vehicles and street rods. A lot of people in this town with street rods. Their car may be 25 years or older, but it doesn't have an original engine. And this is left up to the interpretation of the zoning administrator. So my question to the board is, are you going to have somebody on staff that knows how to look at a vehicle, that knows the difference between a vehicle that's a reproduction or is built to manufacturer specifications, or maybe has worked as a mechanic to find out that the engine and the transmission have manufacturer's code on them and belong in that car? So I really appreciate the work that's done on this. I was home with COVID on 12/21. I didn't know that this was on there, to be honest with you. I did watch the meeting after the meeting was over. I do have real concerns that we're passing this, and residents have not had a chance to see it. So I would love to talk to anybody future if they would like to discuss it, and thank you for listening to me.
Thank you.
I have to say that I had a pretty long conversation with Ms. Campbell today, and I have to agree with a whole lot of the points that she brought up. I think unfortunately, we jumped the gun a little on this, and, you know, there are a lot of things in there that are just opened up to too much interpretation, and the original intent of the law was to clean up pieces of junk sitting out in people's yards that everybody drove by every day, or possibly where you have somebody, maybe, I'm not accusing anybody of this, but maybe you have somebody who's operating a little used car lot out of their yard and they always have 5 or 6 unregistered vehicles in there. Okay, we want to put a stop to that. But I feel that as this is written, especially with the interpretation of a junk motor vehicle, anything that's not registered is a junk motor vehicle. I have to disagree. And Carol, I want to thank you for bringing up a lot of good points here. Sorry, sir. Go
No
ahead.
problem. So Brian Lee, Dupay Road. I don't have a lot to say, except I just don't want her to be a lone voice. Ms. Campbell, thank you very much for your hard work. And Mr. O'Hanlon, thank you, because I agree with everything you both just said. That's, I think, enough said.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? Sure.
Well, it's a few
It's-
pages.
I
We're
can
not-
give you a
don't think
copy.
we're
Would you
gonna read
rather a
the whole
copy?
thing. But let me just clarify, the structure of the law is that it says that you can't store junk motor vehicles outdoors, and then it says a junk motor vehicle is presumed as one that's unregistered, but then it offers a whole list of exceptions. So the structure isn't that any unregistered vehicle is not allowed. It's that there are a whole number of types of cases where they are allowed, including temporary storage for up to 180 days, a vehicle being advertised for sale, et cetera, et cetera. So that's the structure.
How you doing? Rory Blackwell, Pine Hill Road. I pretty much agree with Carol. She's done obviously a lot of homework on it. And I deal with a lot of people with classic cars in the restoration. I grew up doing it. And it does take a while. And these cars are worth a lot of money. It's a big industry. So it's something that part of it really should be taken into consideration, because I, like everybody else, obviously you don't want a guy with a junkyard next to your house. But, you know, these classic cars are, you know, people make money on them, and they are meaningful to people too. So that's all I wanted to say.
Thank you very much, sir. Anyone else? Not seeing or hearing any, I move we close the meeting to the public for the public hearing.
Just to clarify the process, so I think that if you want to close the hearing tonight, if we need to make any final tweaks, we can do that, and then go ahead and adopt it. We wouldn't need to continue the hearing if it's, just a tweak, so.
And Emily's going to we're going to have copies for everybody in a couple. Emily's sending a copy to the town clerk. You could just print it and just have copies. This is the incorrect version, the one you printed out.
No, I think actually Mike printed that out. Yeah.
No, she grabbed it, but I saw it was the wrong one.
Okay, so
I'll make motion that we close the meeting to the public.
I already made the
Oh,
motion.
I'll second it then.
You second the motion. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. At this time, we'd like to open the meeting to the public for any new business or old business that are agenda item only.
You skipped over the minutes.
Oh,
I know we're on the second page, but, so I'll just make a motion
yeah,
that
I'm sorry.
we accept the regular town board meeting minutes for January 23rd.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And all official correspondence are on file at the town clerk's office. And at this time, I'd like to make a motion to open the meeting to the public for any agenda items only.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Agenda items, anyone? Oh. I thought she was coming up to the mic. Carol, are you, Carol?
Carol,
Are
are
you
you coming to the
intending
mic
to
or
go-
no? Oh, we just assumed because you got up that you were coming to the mic, sorry.
We just assumed because you got up, you were walking to,
No, it's okay, no, because we opened the meeting to the public and then you got up to walk around the room. Okay,
not seeing or hearing any, I move we close the meeting to the public.
second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. New business discussions. So, Pleasant Valley Weekend Committee has begun. The process has begun again. It's about this time of year every single year. I'm happy to announce that most of the people that worked on it last year are staying on. Is that correct? And I believe the chairperson who is with us tonight from last year has graciously accepted the role again, if so be. Would you like to get up and say a few words, or anything you need, or anything at all, Ms. McCormick? Nothing? Okay. I do know that we wanted to have those rules in place before we started going on to the next parade. So
We have that, we're
we
going to
have
talk
that
about
tonight
that,
coming
yeah.
up. Okay, good. So, nothing at all from our committee? So I guess we have to start from scratch.
Terry McCormick, Wigston Road. So for anyone unfamiliar, I'm the chairwoman for Pleasant Valley Weekend last year, and I will be doing the same this year. So just a couple quick things. We will need to be, I believe, officially recognized as a committee once again. That's pretty much my biggest thing. And I would also just like to make a little plug if anybody would like to volunteer, please see me. That's pretty much.
Thank you. Any thoughts, concerns, issues? Okay. Bower Park plan for donated property. I see Michael, Councilman Reifenberg.
Yeah.
Do you have any ideas? What do you want to do? Want to build?
If I can get my document to load. So we got donated this land. There's a couple ideas thrown around of when it was originally, we approached the Reynolds for the property. And I know there's still documents and stuff that need to be done, but I figured while we're waiting for all of that, we seem to have an issue when it kind of things get put on the back burner, they get forgotten about. So I would love to, if I can get the okay from the board, I would love to, I think it would be smart for two of us to start sitting down with the rec director and the rec department, have an initial meeting about what we imagine this being a part of Bower Park, Bower Park. It's not part of the rec plan for the town. So we have to figure out what we want to do with that. So I think if we sit down with them and then we can go to the rec committee, kind of throw around our ideas, make sure they're on board for that, and then go to the finance committee, figure out if we have the financial backing for it, which with ARPA funds, grants, there's a lot of stuff out there, and then come back to the board and make a presentation and maybe even hold a meeting just with the public for their input on the plans. I realistically think that if we get going on this now, I think we could have a presentation for the board and an initial presentation for the public for the April town board meeting. And I'm going to say that publicly, so it forces us to have to go and do it. So if I can get the okay from the board, I'd love to start that process. It's not to really put anything in stone, but just to get the ball rolling while we,
I have no problem with it.
is there somebody that would like to work with me to get that going?
I'll work with you.
Mary? Okay. So we'll set up a meeting in the next week or two and get that going. So thank you for your support.
Okay.
And do we have to, I guess what we're talking about, do we have to do anything with the attorneys yet? I know there was talk that we'd have to pass a resolution or something, but,
Sorry, Warren's waiting for the paperwork from Frank Rettel, right, for that donation?
Yeah, when I looked at the deeds, I had some question about, I'm sorry. I had some questions about the deeds from my own experience in transferring property out of an estate. And so we ordered a title search, and the opinion of the title company that looked at the deeds indicated there were a couple of things that needed to be corrected in the deeds. So I've sent that on to Frank. I haven't heard back yet, and I actually called him today. I haven't heard back from him. So as soon as he gets the corrected deeds to us, then we can pass the resolution accepting the property. But if we accept it now, there may be a defect in title, so.
great, thank you.
Okay. Pleasant Valley Town-sponsored event management moving forward. I'm guessing this goes to what you were saying, Emily?
Well, so, yeah, we've had multiple conversations since the Festival of Lights in private about what led up to that and whatnot. And to the gentleman's point that was here at the last meeting, you know, we talked about adopting rules and whatnot. So Emily has the parade rules, but the five of us also discussed that we thought going forward that all town events would be town events. They would fall under the rec department, with the committees falling below the recreation department. Because one of the issues that led to some of these things was we really heavily rely on volunteers, which is a great thing. But one of the parts of that is, at the end of the day, you're volunteers, so you don't have to actually show up because the town's not paying you. So one of the things that led to the Festival of Lights, when we started looking into that, was we had volunteers that the day of the event decided, for whatever reason, not to come, and that's perfectly fine. But that left the town in an interesting position of being way understaffed for an event that the town was throwing. So we have discussed about having to pay employees and having these events staffed either way. And so that's kind of where I wanted to start, because we've talked about it, but we haven't publicly talked about it. And everybody kind of seemed on board. And it's even been talked about that it's been tried for a couple of years, but there's been pushback. So just want to put it out there that, you know, it's something we need to talk about. We've been talking about it, but so the parade rules I like, but also we've talked about all town events falling under recreation. And I know there's been conversations with the rec director, but we've never circled back around with it.
So, being a former volunteer, especially volunteering Pleasant Valley Weekend especially, and other things, I believe volunteers are probably the backbone of a lot of the things that we get done in this town. I've seen it happen time and time again, that while volunteers are not paid, they're there because they take pride into town, and they do it because of the love of this town. And I know that it's the first knee-jerk reaction to when something bad goes wrong or something happens, for us to try to overreact. And I know that for a fact myself. In two different situations, I've never had any dealings with the Festival of Lights and how that goes, but I can only speak from my experience with Pleasant Valley Weekend. Being the chairman of it 4 years straight, I know that the people who put their time in and volunteer are everything. And I know that sometimes if we've tried to get it to be a town event, it failed miserably. And you lose a lot of volunteers, you lose a lot of help. It's quite a big event. It's money that has to be raised in order to get it to where it is. That money we can't do as a town. We'd have to put that money up ourselves. So right now, we haven't really budgeted, and I'm just talking about Pleasant Valley Weekend. We haven't budgeted for the amount of money that it takes to run a weekend like that at this particular time. If we wanted this to be a town event, that would be something we'd have to budget. We would have to sit with the rec department, have those things planned out and etched in stone, year after year as annual events if we want to keep them. But right now, the way it sits, this committee has taken it upon themselves to continue to do the work that they did last year, to keep that weekend going. They usually have to start right away. The last 2 years, they were under the gun. One with COVID, we weren't sure if we were going to even have the bicentennial, and that committee pulled it off, and they got it done. And last year, again, it didn't start until very, very late. So this committee has jumped on it right now, and it's better when it starts early. I do know that for a fact from experience. So that's my point on this. We really should be enhancing the volunteers. If you want this to be a town event down the line,
Well, no, I'll be honest, I appreciate everything that the committee does. The only reason, I didn't realize, because obviously I don't see the agenda till it's put together on Friday night, and we have to put stuff in by Thursday, so I didn't know there was going to be a discussion on the Pleasant Valley Weekend Committee. So that's what led to this, was because the reason this is on there is because exactly to your point, is we're getting into February. I have not heard anything about the Pleasant Valley Weekend Committee up to this point. I've heard actually from all of us that we all kind of thought it was a good idea because we kind of take the wrath of these town events, even though, for example, Pleasant Valley Weekend is not a town-run event. If something happens at it, just like Festival of Lights, it's the 5 of us that end up being responsible. I'm not saying that the committee can't handle that. The reason this is on there is because all 5 of us has said that this was a thing that needed to happen. I believe you've actually had a conversation yourself with the rec director about this potentially happening.
I did. And just to
so
let you
I
know,
put it on here because we are getting tight on time, and I was under the assumption that was what was going to happen. So I was kind of cut off guard tonight, and it's nothing against the committee. It's just we've kind of been left out of the loop that this was not going to happen now. So I would have left this off if that was the case. So I apologize that we're...
No, I mean, just don't apologize.
I just thought we were going in a different direction as a town because that's been the conversation up to this point.
Yeah, this particular program needs to get off the ground with the amount of work immediately. And like I said, this committee has graciously stayed together and has continued to keep that ball rolling and organizing and getting things done no matter what. And if you wanted to do that, if you wanted to change that, I'm sure that they would help.
And I agree with you.
Help with
It's
that.
just...
And I've asked the rec director if that was something that she would consider at this point, and we discussed it on a couple occasions, and at this point, it doesn't seem feasible for you and your... Right. So we would actually, we're not set up, basically, I think, to do it. It's maybe a great idea down the line.
Well, that's the reason it's on here, is because you've said that to me, so I was trying to get
Listen,
that ball rolling.
I actually tried it at one point. I believe it was when Mark Figliozzi was the supervisor at the time, and I was the chairman of the event. I said, this technically really needs to be a town event. And we tore it apart, and we tried to actually do it then. And it came back to where every attorney that we ever talked to, and I'm not blaming you guys, said, no, it's probably better where it sits. So that was even one of the things. So, and I remember when you had asked me to run, and we tried it then, Some of these things, especially when it's derived from the volunteer land, it's difficult to make the metamorphosis to change into something like that. Not that it can't be done, it would take, again, hiring of staff, funding, and a couple other things. I think at this juncture, if you wanted to talk about it going forth in the future with it, I am sure that the volunteer committee that we have now, currently, would certainly point out and help us underline and make sure, highlight the pieces that we need, as I did way back when, that need to be considered for that to happen. So it's a gray area. It's a different kind of animal altogether.
And again, I'm not against keeping the committee and keeping it the way it was. The only reason this is on there is because up to this point, the discussions have been not doing it this way. So that's the only reason this is being discussed tonight. So I'm just saying, moving forward, so this is kind of putting us all in a weird spot, because up to this point, we've been talking about a completely different route. And then all of a sudden this jumps on and we're going, and that's fine, I'm okay with that. It's just, it puts us in a weird spot now that I wish I had known that we were getting away from that other direction, just going forward, because we kind of seem to all be on the same page, and I'm okay with this, and I agree with what you're saying.
When we have a discussion about an idea of how to go forth with something, like, for instance, we mentioned back, a couple of weeks back about the legislative aid. It's a discussion, but things do still happen regardless of what discussion that's going on amongst us. And that particular piece had to go on with or without our discussions, and because of what has to go adjacent to it.
Can I just throw out the thought? I mean, like we've talked about, this board has had the conversation, as we've talked about changing it to a town-run event. And why don't we, I mean, and to further the point, we always need volunteers. Well, like, we need volunteers for everything. So I don't think we're ever saying that we would say no to volunteerism. But what I am just asking us to think about maybe is, why not then make this a town-run event for next year, if that's the route we want to go? And then write it into the budget with the help of and then, like, kind of help adopt what some of the committee did, and then maybe potentially, if that's the route we want to go, then maybe it's a stipend for the person who's going to run the weekend with the help of Sandy under her wing. You know what I mean? Like, there's 9 ways to do this.
Yeah.
But if we want to take onus because we take all the flack, that's the way I think it makes the most sense.
And yeah, it's because it's on town property, and because it's, the town pays for the fireworks and the tents and stuff like that. It's a town-sponsored event. But is it a town event? And we keep it separate for many reasons. And yeah, if you wanted to go ahead with that, we could start with the legal process, and you can.
Are we only talking about Pleasant Valley weekend, or? Okay.
I believe so, because I'm not even sure how the Festival of Lights falls, because it's derived from rec. It's budgeted in by rec. All right, hold on. This is not an open.
This is not open for discussion. It is a rec event.
It always has been. It started with the tree lighting ceremony, and I wanted to expand on it.
Okay.
And that's how it ended up becoming a Festival of Lights parade. We do not need a committee. We can have volunteers.
All right, folks, please, let's keep the conversation here, please.
We can have volunteers help during the year
All right.
and the day of.
Okay, so that's a separate thing. So this, and like I said, I knew that Pleasant Valley Weekend is a totally different animal in that respect. So if you want to go forward and discuss going next year as a town event and how we run it, I will then take this opportunity.
It's a conversation to have.
Yeah, I will then take this opportunity to also charge those who are now volunteering to please take the opportunity as we go to highlight and note the things that need to be taken care of for next year. So-
And I'm supportive of either direction that the town wants to go. If we can get if there's any possible way for the next meeting to get the names of everybody, because I believe we have to put that all
Right,
together.
well, that we
and
have
get
to-
the
we have to
resolution
recognize
passed. And I like the idea that you're suggesting of why can't we put a X amount of money for a stipend for whoever runs, I think it's a lot of work.
It's a lot of work.
Sure, I did it for 4 years, now you want to put a stipend on it. Okay.
Well, it's been a lot of work, but you know what? We've had some great Pleasant Valley weekends with concerned volunteers. You know what? If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Okay.
Well, can we talk about the rules then?
Yeah, let's, the parade rules, absolutely.
Yeah.
So just to start the discussion on that, I want to make sure the credit goes to Mary for, Councilwoman Albrecht for drafting these based on other communities' rules. And so the way these rules are set up, they have a variety of just very logistical items about keeping pets on a leash, cleaning up after your animals, what else? Giving way for emergency vehicles, those types of things. The part that is, that we want to add is to make sure that there's a clear expectation that there won't be any foul language or obscene language used in the parades, which is the issue that spurred developing these rules or editing these rules. So Mary gave these to me. I still need to do a little research on our ability to enforce them and make sure that this is enforceable. So it's not quite ready to go yet, but I also emailed these to the board if you want to take a look at them and get back to me with any comments. Just so I understand, you want this to apply to the Pleasant Valley Weekend Parade and the Festival of Lights Parade, right? That's the way it's written?
I would say any parade
Well, it's the only two we do.
in Pleasant Valley.
It's the only two we do as of right now.
I know, but let's say all of a sudden we have a fireman's parade, which we all walked in, right? That was a parade we didn't.
Oh, yeah,
You
yeah.
weren't there.
I wasn't there.
But, you know, you never know. There could be a special occasion that comes up or something else where we actually have a parade. So any parade at all, I think in Pleasant Valley.
Is there any difference, because there's a note in here that the Festival of Lights Parade has absolutely no candy thrown, and the Pleasant Valley Weekend?
There's a reason for that.
It's
because
because it's dark. It's dark.
Dark.
I see.
And the kids run underneath
So
the
it
tires.
we could say any parade after dark would have.
Right.
Oh, okay.
Right.
How about
Yeah,
that?
okay.
Can I ask one quick question? I see that these rules are the sole discretion of a town officer or representative informing the violator of the violation. Is there any way to give somebody the authority in the committee to be a representative of the town without being an employee? Or do we have, can you do that part of the resolution? for the
That's
next-
what I want to check on, is how we can make sure that these are enforced in a clear way. So
Okay.
thank you for that clarification, yeah. Are there always police available?
Sandy, if you're going to
Usually we
speak,
have
you got to
fire
speak into a
police.
microphone.
We have fire police and regular police. We have either the sheriff's department, yeah, right, sheriff's and fire police, yep.
I mean, some issues would not be, police worthy necessarily, if someone's
Yeah.
not keeping a proper, distance between floats or
Right,
something.
right,
We're
right.
not going to call the police.
And I mean, to that point, that float drove past multiple police that didn't enforce, so, I mean, I think it's something that, again, we have to take ownership as a town or as the committee to make sure we're enforcing it, but I want to make sure we give the power to whoever we need to give the power to do that.
Just real quickly, I think we should, somewhere in here include, if we're gonna have parades, because I've been involved in them, and a lot of times, the person who's in charge of coordinating the parade is probably at the beginning of the line, and then there's someone who helps try to set it up. I think, Michael, you jumped in last second on the last one. I think we should have somewhere in the parade rules that not only do you have your leader and your guy who's organizing it, but 3 or 4 or 5 people throughout the course of the process, one in the beginning, one at the end, several in the middle, to make sure that everything is going smoothly. We usually kick them off from one point, and then we pray they get to the other side, right? I mean, that's what I've seen over the years. And they know where to go, but there's nothing along that line that helps us.
Yeah, there's no enforcement, and
Nothing-
that, I mean, that's kind of, who knows what actually happened, but, I mean, there, in all reality, nobody's along the parade route running out and
Right.
stopping. I mean, it's
Or even-
happened a couple
even some of
different
the other
times now.
things. Forget that one bad piece, but like, for instance, I know myself, walking in, oh my God, we're too far behind. You know, someone saying, hey, catch up, you
Pick
gotta
it up,
catch up,
yeah.
gotta keep it moving, that kind of thing, or slow down, you're crowding, or something along those lines. That was just one other suggestion, I'm just glancing.
No, I just had a comment. The reason why I mentioned the police is I think putting it on a committee person or even myself to go up to someone and say, you're out of here, it has to be someone, to me, it would have to be an officer that has authority. So I don't know how you want to put that in there, because they can get nasty, and then what are you going to do?
Yeah.
I mean, they can get nasty with the police, but at least it's someone who has authority to do something
Right.
legally. And
Recognized authority. Yep. So for those of you folks on the committee now, you'll be the first parade, I believe, we're gonna see that's actually gonna put these to the test. So the onus and our future is in your hands. No pressure. Okay. Anyone else have anything to say on the parade rules? Okay. Escrow fee changes. Town attorney.
I think the reason this was on here was there was an issue about collecting the escrow fees efficiently in the planning and zoning department to make sure that the applicants know all the fees that are assigned to them before their application is closed out and their plans are signed. So I'm not sure if we need to discuss this as a board, but it is something that someone should follow up on, because there was an issue where a final plan was signed, and then we found out afterward that there were still escrow fees that needed to be collected, and the escrow had been returned. So,
That was one of the things, but I think there was, the fees need to be changed higher to cover some of these costs. They're not covering, is that correct? Did I hear that?
Well, I know we were talking about, so I had responded with, one of the issues is some of the attorneys and the engineering companies that work with the different boards, they don't submit their bills until like 6 months later. So it's pretty much impossible for anybody in the planning office to,
Right.
you know, not sign off on something, waiting, because they have no idea when the bill's coming in. So is there any way, I know you had said maybe we could put a deadline of you have to have your bills in on the 15th. What would be, if we did that, what could the town do if they just say, sorry, it's coming in next month? Because I know it sounds good that you need to have your bills in by the 15th, but
I could talk to, Warren might have some experience with this in other communities, when consultants' bills come in too late and then the project has already been closed out and the escrow returned. Do you have any advice on that?
You mean on returning the escrow?
Well, on getting the consultants to submit their bills more timely.
So,
And sometimes there's
when you contract with a consultant or somebody who's doing work for the town, we usually, when I do a contract, I usually put in there that they have to have their bills in by a certain time, and that they have to expect that the bills have to be audited by the town board. So a lot of contractors put in there, you expect to be paid in 10 days. You know, you can't do that. So I think it's a matter of whoever you contract with has to know what the rules and regulations are in terms of giving the town enough time to get the bill, audit it, approve it, and pay it, which usually takes 30 days or more.
So,
So if we're having our zoning and planning board department actually listening to the rules by the contractor, that's where the issue is. They're just abiding by what they're seeing as a contract and not following what we have as a contract, our own protocols.
I think we might be able to address this just through some communication without having to take an action, so let's try that first. Yeah.
Why don't we discuss it and
Yep.
see what the issues are? I'm sure it's not a problem I'm sure it's a problem that's been dealt with before somewhere.
Yeah.
Or many cases.
We're having a meeting coming up with the zoning chair, the planning board chair, that department, the building inspector, and the fire advisory board. I will bring that up in that meeting for them, because they're trying to get together and work out a process. So I'll bring that up there for them. First, we ignore. What's on contract? Okay. Vandalism at town parks, okay. So, you want to start?
Sure. So you asked me to look into what we can do about passing some laws that, to deal with the vandalism at town parks. I guess the problem has been more specifically with the pump house, the mill park.
The Mill House got a big hit the other day. Not too long ago, for those of you folks who don't know it, the Eternal Flame has been snuffed out and damaged. Much damage to many of the walls leading to the Eternal Flame, the gazebo, old cameras. There's been several different things.
So there's really no need to adopt any special laws or ordinances by the town, because those laws are already on the books pursuant to the penal law. It's really a matter of enforcing the existing law against people who are vandalizing the park. As a matter of fact, New York State passed an Anti-Vandalism Act in 1991, which is embodied in Penal Law Section 240. It applies to cities and large municipalities, not a town like Pleasant Valley, but we can take a look at that. But there are numerous provisions of the penal law which exist that the town can utilize to enforce against violators or people who are committing vandalism. The most useful one is making of graffiti. It's section 145.60, and I'll make copies of these and I'll give them, you don't have to write them down, which makes making graffiti a Class A misdemeanor. There's actually a law regarding the possession of graffiti instruments. That's under section 145-65 of the penal law. That's a Class B misdemeanor. Criminal mischief in the various degrees. There are criminal mischief runs from first degree to fourth degree. And several of the criminal mischief statutes would apply to vandalism in the park. Depending on the degree of violation, it would either be a Class A misdemeanor or it could be a felony. That's useful. So I think it's a matter of really, let me see, I think I had a couple of others. Trespass could be another statute, and criminal tampering in the third degree. It's really a matter of surveillance. You have to probably put some video cameras
That's what we're looking at.
in the parks, especially where you're having a real problem. And a meeting, I think, with the town police with regard to enforcement, letting them know that they have the power to arrest people or give them notices of violation. They don't necessarily have to take them into custody if it's a minor offense.
As soon as we get one of those,
Get one of what?
we don't have a town police.
I thought you did have.
No, no.
Oh.
We don't have a jail, we don't have town
you did get the
police.
sheriff. Oh, so we don't have, Well, I think then, who provides our,
We have the sheriff as needed and state troopers as needed, but it's usually we're
I
presented
don't
with a
know
bill.
if the sheriff is gonna meet with us, but it might be a good idea to talk to the sheriff's.
Here's my question for you, and this is, I think, what I was looking for. Can we, the board, set the fee schedule? In other words, let's say you break a window at the mill, and there's a penalty that goes along with it. You get charged with your Class A misdemeanor, and you're charged with replacing that window, which is X amount of dollars and a fine, or whatever it may be for doing that. Can we set that as a board?
You can't, if it's a violation of the penal law, that's prescribed under the penal law. So the range of penalties, whether it be a fine or imprisonment or other penalties, have to follow the range in the penal law. If somebody is given a ticket or arrested for a violation of a section of the penal law. What you can do, in addition to that, is set civil penalties, which we could enforce separate and apart from the criminal penalties.
I think that's what I've been asking.
Right. So we could take a look at that and see if we can add that. But if you don't have enforcement, it doesn't matter what you do. You've got to have
Right.
somebody going to the park on a regular basis at the times when you suspect most of these activities occur, to make sure that the violators are ticketed. I would also recommend the posting of one or more signs
Right.
indicating that certain violations could be deemed to be a misdemeanor or a felony, and the town will criminally and civilly prosecute anybody who violates it and put them in conspicuous places on a park. That's not an expensive solution.
No, that's not.
But if we don't have, I'm sorry, I thought we did have our own police.
No.
If we don't have enforcement, it's not going to do us much good. That's really the problem. So it might be a matter of seeing if the sheriff's department would cooperate with us.
For the most part, the sheriff does a great job when we need them, and we do get presented a bill for that.
Yeah, okay.
So,
But I can send you the range of penalties and talk about civil penalty also.
Okay.
I think the range of criminal penalties are enough without the civil penalties, but you can add that. But I think surveillance is very important. The cameras, I think, will help. The posting of signs and
Lighting.
the periodic inspection of the various parks to see at the hours that you suspect these activities occur would be helpful also.
Okay.
And then make an example of a few people who violate it and go, express, the town, if somebody's arrested and they're charged with graffiti or malicious mischief in the second degree or third degree, the town could weigh in on that and request the maximum penalty.
Okay.
And that might deter whoever's doing this or a group of people who are committing these acts.
again, I said this once before in another meeting. When I grew up, if I did something wrong, I broke something, or if I damaged something, I was made to pay for it. I was made to make good on it and do that. And my parents upheld that. Today, we don't seem to have that as much. So I was trying to make it to where when we do this, when we spend the extra money going for cameras and lights and signs, that at the end of the rainbow, somebody's accountable.
Yeah, well, when you when you install the surveillance cameras, I would communicate and meet with the sheriff's department, maybe the state police, to see how you utilize those for enforcement, and that may help. But I think the signage in a prominent place, in a number of places at the parks, indicating that there are severe penalties that that the town could invoke, might do the trick. But these are hard. As you can see, it's a problem across New York
Everywhere.
State, especially in more urban areas.
Michael, you looked like you were going to say something. Either one? Okay.
No, just, I sent you an email. If I can just get the verbiage, I'll get the signs made up, since,
Yeah, we have to work on that.
Okay.
And no littering, too. Let's get one of those, too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, let me put together a package of the various provisions of the penal law, and I'll send it to all of you. And then maybe I could work up a recommended sign. I don't know if any other towns have this problem, and if they've posted signs, we might want to see what they've utilized that may work.
Yep.
But they've got to be prominent signs.
And we were going to have an RFP for...
I sent it to you.
You sent me,
Yep.
we're all set with that?
Ready to go.
Okay, so I will send it along to the board so they can all see what the actual makeup is. Did you send it to everybody?
No, I just sent it to you and Jen.
Right, okay. It looked fine to me. I'll send it to everybody else and just we'll go forward. Okay. New business resolutions.
Mr. Supervisor, just, we skipped over extending the advertisement for the grant writer.
Extending the advertisement of grant writer. Oh, right, I'm sorry. So we've been advertising for a grant writer, and I believe we're just going to extend that a little further since we've had no inquiries.
So didn't we talk about this, about not extending? Didn't we have the conversation about like when it came up for us to go capture a grant that we would then look for a grant writer or use the county for their grant writing purposes? I thought we had this conversation.
Again, it was just conversation, it was a thought, it was a shot out there. Whatever. I say we extend it one more shot and see what we come up with. Bless you. So, Town Clerk, you have the authority to extend that? Now, new business resolutions. Transferring truck from Highway Department to halls, town staff. Town hall staff.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Just a little note, just to let you guys know. Since we've received the keys, it did come with brand-new tires. There were a couple little glitches with it that we need to learn how to drive that vehicle. And I just think it's just a matter of getting comfortable with the idea that we have another vehicle and where it's going to be and what we're using. So far, so good. So, get to that real quick. What you do to me? Here we are. Okay. The next appointment to the Board of Ethics. So, Mary, you wanna talk on this one? Oh, let me just read the resolution. Town Board Resolution 202, 2023, appointment to the Board of Ethics. Whereas Terry McCormick has expressed an interest in being appointed to the position on the Town Board of Ethics, now therefore be it resolved that the Town Board of Town of Pleasant Valley does hereby designate and appoint Terry McCormick to the Town Board of Ethics to fill the unexpired term effective immediately as follows. February 6th, 2023, term expires December 31st, 2027.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Correcting the terms for the ZBA alternates, whereas the town code provides for the appointment of the alternate members to the zoning board of appeals, and whereas section 9895 of the code specifies that such alternates shall be appointed for the terms of 2 years, and whereas the appointment resolutions for the 2 current alternates inadvertently indicated terms longer than 2 years, and whereas the town board appreciates the service of the alternates but recognizes the need to amend the terms to conform to the law. Now therefore be it resolved that Resolution 3010-2022 is hereby amended to set the expiration date of Jennifer Adams' term as ZBA alternate at December 31st, 2023, and further it be resolved that the Resolution 7010-2022 is hereby amended to set the expiration of Thomas Cassidy term as ZBA alternate at December 31st, 2023.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
John, we're going to let those people know that.
I'll take care of that tomorrow. Town Board Resolution 204, 2023, adopting updated procurement policy. Do I have to read the whole thing? Can I get one of it?
So
Okay.
moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And that's that. Items for special consideration, advertising for Rec Department.
I make a motion to allow it on the agenda.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
So I guess we're going to advertise for more rec. And then item number
Thank
2,
you.
clerk for recreation office.
I'll make a motion to allow it on the agenda.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And just to clarify, that's just changing the title of,
It's just changing the title of the position that was already put into the budget.
right, and the position was again?
No, it was, you mean the new one? It was
No.
rec leader.
Rec leader.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then you want to make it rec clerk,
No, just clerk,
just clerk.
right.
All right.
Is Brooke square with that? Did you guys consult with the?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
And, okay, old business discussions. Credit card acceptance update. I think we're still working on that, right, Mary Beth? Didn't you just mention?
Yes, it's, we're setting up
We're
the
very close.
electronic
We're close.
processing, and we have a
Okay.
Zoom tomorrow morning with Hamer to
Okay.
go over all of it.
All right. Security at the parks, we just discussed that. Changes to the rule, town board, Councilman Reifenberg's, we're still
working on-
discussing, still
Yeah,
discussing.
getting stuff together we'll probably discuss it more at the next meeting.
Okay. New town hall design, layout, and plan. Mr. Greg Bolner sent you all a big, long thing. When I saw that, how much it took to print it all out, we just went with electronic. Take a chance and look at that.
Yeah, so.
Can we talk?
We had an opportunity to take a look at the.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
I just really quick, the reason I asked for this to be on the agenda is I kind of feel lost in the entire process here. You know, we got this document from Greg, and to me, it looks like it's a bid package to go out to bid for pre-demo. It's not a bid package for the entire thing. I feel like I went through the library rebuild with some great people, and I saw how it's done correctly, and it's so much work and energy and effort. And I feel like we're kind of disconnected on where we are. And when residents ask us questions of what's going on, I honestly have no idea what to tell them. And then when I bring up concerns that I really don't think we should be mobilizing a company to go in and start demoing, to then shut down the job site for 6 months, to then bring in a different company potentially to mobilize again. I know we want to get this going and we want to make this happen, but at the same time, it's our responsibility to do it for the best cost for the taxpayers. And even in the bid package that he put together, it talks about putting fencing up and that all costs money. It costs money to put an office out there. It costs money to bring electricians, plumbers. All these trades are going to have to be there. And I think there's design questions that Councilwoman Albrecht have asked about. There's design questions that other members of this board have asked about. And we keep being told, this is just preliminary, just wait. But then we're being told that we're going out for final bid in a month. So I just want to have a discussion of rethinking how this process is going so we make sure we get the best benefit for the residents. And I would even go as far as, I would be totally fine with if we have to do a special meeting at 6 p.m. before each meeting where the 5 of us can sit here in public and just talk out all these things for a multi-million-dollar project that I honestly have no idea what's going on with. I think there needs to be more oversight from the 5 of us on this because it is such a big project. And it's not a fault of anybody. It's just there's a lot of work that needs to be put into this, and it's not right for 1 or 2 people to have to do all that work. And I honestly have done nothing to help because I'm in the dark on everything that's going on, so.
We could certainly do that.
I just-
I'm one of those, as many as possible. I just thought it was easier for, to keep it.
Yeah, I definitely think that
That's
the
fine.
layout itself, I think we really need to sit down and go over that.
I'm just really concerned when we've brought up concerns, and now, I don't even, Greg's not here to explain it, but I don't even know the amount, everybody can see how many pages in this document. I can just imagine the bill we're gonna get for this bid package to go out and, I don't even know if the
He was
majority.
hoping to be here to help you
Yeah,
with.
but I
with
don't
that.
even know if the majority of the board feels that we should be doing that.
Then that's
and-
fine. Well, we can make a date for the next meeting and come back an hour earlier, and he can certainly,
all that stuff costs money. And I think it would be better if the five of us were all involved. So I'll make a motion to call a special meeting just to discuss the new town hall with no open, it'll be open to the public, but no open comment to the residents for 6 PM on Wednesday, 22nd, which will end prior to our town board meeting. And the
I second
purpose
it.
is just to talk about
I
everything.
second it. All in favor?
Second.
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Can I ask a couple questions about let's talk about the plan, for instance. So I know that everyone has talked about that we need to get out of this building, we need to get out of this building. And then when we talked about it last week, there was the general consensus of like, oh yeah, once we get out of here, we can do whatever we need to do to sell the building. But as soon as that meeting was over, the following day, the rec director was told by the supervisor to ask the town board or ask her friends to get on board with keeping this building. So I really would love to know what the plan is, because if we're going to move up there, why would we keep this building?
So why would we sell this building? There's another question. Well, hold on.
A million reasons.
Hold on. One of the major reasons, and I know a lot of people think it's flooding and it's insurance, but the biggest reason why we're leaving this building is our court system. Okay, that was mentioned way before anyone else was on this board. Our court system, our court room is totally incorrect, and it's not compliant with New York State.
I'm not saying it's not, but then...
So hold on, listen to the whole thing. You want an answer, I'm going to give you an answer. So New York State has said we are not compliant, and it would require approximately $1 million to put it to where they would want it. So I wouldn't put $1 million into this building, not in a million years, okay? But if we were there, and we moved to the other building, and we had this building, and at the time, from what I've seen so far, the only two people or only two interested parties happen to be churches, which would keep it off the tax rolls. If that's the case, we might as well keep it. If another company came along and wanted to buy the building and said, then like I said, 1 million times, we'd sell it. But that's going to be for a board to decide at that point in time. But at the same time, look at the benefits. Let me finish. But at the same time, look at the benefits if we kept this building of what it would be for recreation and gave it to recreation totally.
Can I be
I thought that would be a great idea.
I just want to
And that's just discussion.
I just have one question to ask based off of your answer.
And I appreciate it when I discuss something with somebody, it just keeps it that way.
Well, so I have another question for you based off your response. So you mentioned that we have to get out of here for the court's purpose, and that would cost us $1 million. Then why are we going to spend $4 million to move everything when we only needed to spend $1 million to fix one thing? Like I've literally heard from residents that like that project up there on the 1903 is going to cost us too much money, $4 million, $5 million. Under Szynski it was $6 million, right? Like we've heard all different numbers, but if we don't really need to move and we're just trying to fix the problem of updating the court, why don't we do that?
Because the other piece is the flood and the possibility of flooding, and what we insure in this building is what is the cost. And it's everything that you guys, it's computers, it's all the stuff that we have here that is the most expensive that you have to insure. It's not necessarily just the walls.
Can I be recognized?
Good.
I think this goes back to my initial point of feeling in the dark about all of this, because I've heard the same thing of, we potentially, you know, when I asked about the 2,300 extra square feet of open space, my initial thought is, well, why aren't we thinking about moving recreation all in a central location? We don't have to pay for phones and electric and all that stuff up at Helen Aldridge. It just makes sense instead of maintaining. And then I've heard that, you know, potentially this could be a rec center or whatnot. But and again, it annoys me that we're even having this conversation now, but I just found out about this within the last month, is that I've been told as a decision maker here that the reason we need to leave this building is because it floods all the time. That's why I am okay with spending $4 or $5 million, whatever it's going to be, to move town hall. But if it baffles me that now I'm being told that the grand plan might be to keep this building because, oh, it'd make a great rec center or whatnot.
There's no grand plan.
So it just, the plan has always been is that this building floods. So we need to move this building, and that's why we need to spend $4 or $5 million to move up the road. The plan was never proposed to me that we would also keep this building and make it into another town, because if it was seriously just the courts, and it's not actually flooding, then there's a piece of property right next door that was for sale at one point. We have a 5-acre piece of Redell Park that is not parkland that we could easily build a municipal court at, which would all cost less than what we're planning on doing. I just think that the 5 of us really need to start having these special meetings where we just sit down and we talk this out, because there's a lot of information.
You've asked for the special meeting, you got the special meeting. Everything you guys are talking about is hearsay and thought and wishing and dreaming. That's all it is. There's nothing, if I was gonna put together a plan, you'd see it.
So let's say we build this building tomorrow. What's your plan for this building?
We put it up for sale. We see what's out there.
So
If there's nothing there, we have to use it.
So it's hearsay that you told me directly that you would want to keep the building and make it a rec center. That's not hearsay. So I'm very
No.
confused about what the plan is.
It's a thought. I mean, you can't go on a thought or a premise. It's a possibility. Who knows? Again, that is a decision for the board at that time.
It's a pretty direct thought to tell the rec director to tell her friends to get on board with keeping this building.
And it's also when the facts have been that we need to move from this building and spend multi-millions of dollars of residents' money.
Okay, so.
Because this floods, and then we're planning on keeping it. I think we need to know that.
There
That's
is no
more than a
plan to
thought.
keep the building. If we could afford to keep the building, and if that's something we need at that time, we keep the building. If it's something you want to sell and is a buyer, we sell the building. This is an afterthought.
And it's pretty likely that the 5 of us sitting here aren't going to be the same 5 that make that decision when it
knows?
finally comes down the pike.
And that's why I've
because
said that.
We can't really think about what we're going to do to this building until we're in the new one. And a lot of things may have changed. Our needs may have changed a good bit by then. And who knows? As for me, right now, I'm not going to be super concerned with what we're going to do with this building right now. Let's see what happens when we're in the new one, and then we make those decisions.
And I seem to remember, Mr. Mazzella, that you reminded me that these ceilings could come out, and that wall can come out, and this could be an inside basketball court.
Well, and just
hearing, I mean, I remember that little conversation.
Right. For Councilman O'Hanlon's point, I completely agree that at least 3, I would say Councilwoman Albrecht and myself are probably still going to be here when, hopefully, if we actually build this building up there. Hopefully it won't take us over 2 years or 3 years. But to that point, to your point, there is a valid questioning of, I've been told over and over and over again, and the residents of this town have been told over and over and over again, that the reason we need to move from here is that this building floods and we cannot stay here. So I understand your point is that it might not be our decision what happens to this building, but guess what? It's our decision to spend multi-millions of dollars to move up to that building. And we have to make a decision that's best for the residents if it's worth that. Because if it's not the fact that this building floods and it's some other reason, I need to know that as somebody who needs to make this decision. And up to this point, that has been the argument that's been
So
made.
if you want to go back and do some homework, and you'll see what happened when we purchased the building, and the reasons being as why we purchased that building up there, it's all explained out to you. So I would highly suggest you go back and look at those records and find out why. And it was two major reasons. One of them being the court. Two of them being that it floods. That the flood is possible at any time. And that the insurance on everything that we are insuring inside this building is the biggest cost of that.
So if we
Now,
kept the
I would
rec
highly
center,
suggest
have
you
the
go back
same
and check
issue.
those records out when we purchased it, and we had a public hearing, and the people came out, and everybody in this audience nodded their head before anyone here sat on this board.
I'd also like to point out that that was a time when the board refused to put video in this room or any audio or recording, so people weren't as transparent of what actually was going on.
At that
So
time, when I first came onto this board, that wasn't even an option. Wasn't even an option.
I'm just
That was
pointing out
only-
the
Only
fact.
recently, only the last 3 years, that has been an option. We had a lady that came in here and started streaming it. It wasn't even a consideration.
Well, I can tell you that I, as a constituent back then, I attended that public hearing. And that's when Mark Figliozzi was supervisor. And I listened to a whole lot of people speak that evening concerning the purchase of the building. And not one single constituent got up and spoke in opposition of the purchase. There was absolutely nothing but praise. And a couple of people that are sitting out there right now got up and spoke for the purchase.
Can I ask, was it told to them that the plan was potentially keeping this building, or was the plan that
Again,
this
you're
building
arguing
floods?
a moot
Actually,
point.
that,
It's not
that
a
wasn't,
point.
that didn't even come up, whether we were gonna
All
keep
right, we're
it
going to
or
move
sell
on.
it.
It's a moot
And-
point. Yeah, discuss it on the 22nd if you need to discuss it.
Can I just bring up procedurally, we do need at some point to do a resolution authorizing the increased expense for this project. And so what I understood from Greg Bolner was that he wants to do an additional process to check out the estimates. So maybe that can be discussed at that next meeting as well, because we do need to move forward with that process.
Okay. Updating our procurement policy, I believe we've already done that.
Yep.
Right. Okay. All right. This time, I'd like to open the meeting to the public.
We added 2 items. There's the Bodnar application for us to discuss, and then there's the local law of junk cars for us to discuss that we added at the beginning of the
say
meeting.
again?
We added 2 things. We added the Bodnar application so we, as a board, can discuss it after hearing everyone's comments.
Oh.
And we also added the local law for junk cars, so again, I guess so we could talk about it after hearing everyone's comments.
I lost that last one. You
The
mumbled-
junk cars, the junk car law.
Junk cars, okay, you mumbled it, I couldn't understand what you're saying. So you want to discuss the local laws?
We added them to the agenda, so.
Yeah, so the Bodnar one, obviously, that one's open, so there's not much to really, but just on that point, it kind of is baffling to me that, and this has kind of been something I've been thinking of, but it just happens this morning when I was shopping. This was laying in the ground in LaGrange, and I happened to take a picture of it. But other towns require these signs to be posted anytime there's a public hearing on the property. And it would kind of alleviate a lot of this issue of relying on the mail and whatnot. So I'm going to ask for potentially adding this to the agenda for the next meeting of requiring or changing the law to require a sign be posted. So if residents or anybody driving by who might not even be required to be noticed, they would know that something's going on. So that might fix a lot of these issues.
But I believe we still have to do what we're supposed to do anyway, so that's just added, is what you mean?
What was that?
That's not instead of.
No, that would be an additional thing, yeah.
Anything else on that particular law? Okay. At this time, I'd like to open the meeting to the public. One time only.
Hold on, we need to talk about the junk law.
Thought we just did.
No, that was the Bodnar section.
Oh, my apologies. Okay. Junk motor vehicles law.
I'll agree with Councilman O'Hanlon. I think Ms. Campbell brings up a lot of valid points. We spent a good amount of time on the phone today discussing it. I don't think it was, listen, we just, this is new. We're making a law from, nothing and kind of piecing stuff together. So we can always make changes to it, I'm sure. But I think the outdoor storage, I'd like to, I don't really see why we wouldn't maybe consider some of the language that she put in there. The only thing is it's kind of backwards, her proposed. So the current verbiage says the placing, maintaining, or keeping in a place other than a building or structure with a certificate of occupancy. If we used her language, we'd have to make it the placing, maintaining, or keeping in a place other than the listed areas. So we can't use the verbiage exactly of how she submitted it because it's actually saying the opposite, that we want it kept out and in view. But my personal opinion, I'm only one of 5, is that maybe we look at that language that she gave us, because I think if we fix that, it kind of negates all the other stuff, because it kind of encompasses more of an open, if it's not bothering your neighbors and whatnot, that's really the reason for it.
I've been playing a little game of telephone between what you say and then going back to
Yeah,
Sarah,
I know.
so it might be better if you just call Sarah and talk to her about it, or we could have a Zoom or something and just go over it, because I know, she is the one that has to go out and enforce this, and so I don't want to speak for what her concerns were exactly. I'm happy to work with you on it, but
Yeah.
we need to keep her in the loop too.
If the board is okay with it, I don't mind setting up a Zoom between me. I don't know if you want to be on it, and Emily and Sarah, and
Yeah, well, it can't be more than 2 of us, otherwise it has to be an open meeting, but I would like very much to be on it with
Perfect.
you.
Anything else on the junk cars? And now, I'd like to open the meeting up to the public. One time only, anything.
Did you make the motion, John?
I did make a motion.
Oh, I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Why do you guys all take the long way around? It looks like you all get up and leaving, and then you don't.
Gary Vader, South Pine Turnpike. When I was thinking about coming up here, I said, well, the Grammys are on last night. I was going to sing my song to you instead of speaking it. But I couldn't understand the lyrics, and I have the same problem here at this meeting. I don't understand what a lot went on. Just an observation. Couple things. In fact, more than usual. I think you kind of glossed over the work that Terry has done on the Pleasant Valley Weekend Committee and the volunteers on that committee. Let me just give you a little insight. The people on that committee, and we didn't know each other. A bunch of us were strangers. We never met anybody. We have all become friends. We work together. It's quiet. Everybody gets their work in, their voice in, and we come up with conclusions. That's a refreshing thought. And if I couldn't do the Grammy thing tonight, I was going to float a balloon over it so maybe we could understand more. We bought a truck for the highway superintendent.
Correct.
Did we ever put that out to bid?
The,
It was bought off of the state bid.
Pardon me?
We piggybacked off one of the state bids.
Oh,
Yeah.
so it went to a local business, but under a state bid?
I don't know the exact place that we purchased the truck from, but it was through the state OGS bid system. So it was someone in New York.
Okay. When you're working on your rules for parades, I would also define what a parade is. Is a march a parade? So, I know you all aren't actors up there, but if you were actors, you would speak into the microphone. When you're talking, I'm going to point on you right now, but a lot do it. You talk to John, you turn around and you talk to him. It doesn't come out here. And that happens a lot on here. If you switch this to the town and the town puts it in the budget, let me tell you, that is, to me, a considerable amount of money. We raise a lot of money to put that on. And it's appreciated from all the businesses in town that donate to it. And they feel like they come a part of it. You will lose that with the town. In addition, I wouldn't depend on all the volunteers signing up for a town-sponsored one. Thank you.
Thank you, Gary.
Good evening. I'm Sue Bellevue, 103 Wixon. So thank you for addressing the issue regarding cars that may not be sightly to people, their neighbors and everything. I would like to know if there's anything that's going to be done regarding what I brought up 2 weeks ago regarding Brookside Meadow. I drove by again today. There is a old big slide, plastic slide that must be 10 to 12 feet wide. There is looks like a washing machine or a dryer from the road. It looks like a refrigerator. And we all know that refrigerators are extremely dangerous if they're left outside and if door's not removed, I can't tell. But it is now approximately like 2-3 weeks since I mentioned it. And I know that throughout the town that we would not want to see appliances on people's property that is rusting and just left there like garbage. So I appreciate that we're looking into other areas of the town regarding cars that may be junk, but I'm also asking the board to look into other areas of Pleasant Valley where we have garbage outside people's homes or businesses that really at what point in time enough is enough. Call somebody, junk removal, and get the junk removed. It is a hazard, it is dangerous, and it's unsightly, and it's not nice for our values of our homes. And that's all I ask.
Real quickly, you said by Brookside Meadow, or was it at Brookside Meadow?
It's at Brookside. So if you go down Wixton Road on the left where the barn is, there's, like those slides, the big yellow slides, there's a refrigerator, there's garbage. I asked someone who lived there, she goes, it's been there for months upon months, and from the road, because I don't go on personal private property, it's probably a good maybe 15 by 20 feet pile of junk. And it needs to be taken care of.
Is that the old Wigston house?
I don't know. Is that the old Wigston on the left side? So it's on Wigston, is where the barn is.
Okay.
And I'm hearing that inside Brookside is beautiful, but on the outside, not so nice. Thank you.
Thank you.
Katrina Maloney, 22 Coachman. I just want to make another comment since we're about the junk cars and the permits and all of that. I realize that people will have cars that they're working on and that kind of thing, but I also do have a concern about hiding vehicles in tents because I've seen some of them and they look just as bad as a junk car. I also realize that it could be a very big burden to have someone have to pay for a building and that has a certificate of occupancy, and I would never want to put that on a resident either. I'm not really sure what is the best idea. I'm just pointing out that those tents can be very unsightly as well, not just junk cars or junk farm equipment. You know, that's all I have to say about that. So just want you to consider that tents aren't necessarily a be-all, end-all to that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. Laura Silvernail, North Avenue. I just have a couple questions because I came here looking for information and I didn't get the information I needed on new business discussions, item 2. Bower Park plan for donated property. I don't know anything about that yet. Is that donated by Herb Brettel?
Yes,
I'm connecting the dots.
yes.
So the next step is you need to legally own it,
Correct.
and then it's going to be developed. Has any discussion been made on that?
Tonight was the first.
So who does the developing? Is it in conjunction with residents or
So
the
we're really just
recreation?
discussing a possible plan as to what may go there and what happens. It really was the first time tonight we've touched anything on it.
Yeah, so I think once we sit down and kind of brainstorm some possibilities of what the town might need there, my hope would be when we come back to the board and discuss some of those options, that we could hold a meeting where residents can sit down and we can.
Put some input in?
Yeah, exactly. This
Because
is-
I'm the neighbor.
Yeah, I think we've met once or twice, but
Yeah.
I think it's important that no matter what, you guys need to be involved, anybody.
Okay.
Just to make
And
sure it's the right thing.
If I have any concerns as the adjoining neighbor, who would I go to as the new owner? I know it's the town, but who do I pick up the phone and say, hey, I got an issue?
Us.
Well, with
Who's us?
Right
The
here.
town. The town board.
Right here.
Well, there's no way to talk to all of you at once.
Well, you'd call the town supervisor, I would
Oh,
assume.
it
He's here
start
day to
there?
day. Yeah.
Starts here, and if you
Okay.
wanted to express with a letter, write your thoughts down, and we'd put it into the record with the town
Okay.
clerk.
No, I've just had an ongoing thing with Rettel on him maintaining the trees. And he was very ill for a while before he passed, so I backed off. And then when it went up for sale, I had been talking with Curry, but she dropped the ball. But then I heard rumor had it that it was going to be donated, and here we are.
That's happened.
So now it's going to fall into your lap.
Correct.
Okay, so I should probably just hold off on that concern, because you've got to own it first.
We got to own it first.
Right. Okay. That's it for now for my questions. I'm just going to sit tight and keep an eye on the website for upcoming meetings relating to this,
Yes, ma'am.
and that's the next step. Alrighty.
Laura, what's your last name again? I didn't catch it.
Silver nail. Silver like the color, and nail like a hammer and nail.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Okay.
Just a little. Carol Campbell, 122 Marshall. Want to talk about the town hall. I was at that meeting. I came in here with all kinds of questions about why it wasn't a good idea. And I came to the mic and I spoke. I took the time to go through the plan that Supervisor Figliozzi had taken the time to put together. It's a very good plan. All of the questions that I needed answered were answered here that night. And I went out of here supporting it. I went out of here supporting it. I think it would be very helpful for the town, and I know that we're working on an updated website, and I can't wait. I absolutely cannot wait. But that used to be on the town's website when Supervisor Figliozzi was here. You could go out and look. He actually hired an engineering company to compare this building to the new building. And he gave a list of reasons of why we shouldn't stay here, why we should go up there. You know, he played devil advocates actually, the person who did the plan played devil advocate both way. And we need to remember that that building could have went to permissive referendum, but it did not. And one of the reasons it didn't is because Supervisor Figliozzi had done the work. The other thing that I want to point out is, and when you guys were all talking, I wrote on my paper, flooding, 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 okay? The state of New York got tired of paying a ton of money to the town of Pleasant Valley every time this building flooded. And so the grant was from the state of New York for us to move, because it would have been cheaper for the state of New York to help us with a grant to move rather than to pay us for a building that was flooded. I applaud Councilman Reifenberg, I can't remember your name, Reifenberg, I'm so sorry, I've been here a while, for trying to bring the board together to have discussions. You know, I've come to the meetings and I have watched this town spend an awful lot of money on engineering. I did look at the attachments to the town agenda, and to be honest, they were too in-depth for me to review and actually have any real idea of what that was. Supervisor Del Vecchio is 100% right that the court drove a lot of this. And the fact that this court is operating the way it is a travesty. It's an accident waiting to happen, and we need to get our butts in gear, so to speak, and make something happen. So, yes to the court, and for Councilman Reifenberg, I proposed recorded meetings my first year as supervisor. And I went to every one of the towns and asked them what they were doing. And I presented a plan to the board, and they voted against it. And so it was COVID that got us here, and I'm very happy that COVID got us here. That was the one thing for it. But as far as the town hall goes, I look forward to discussions. I think that the board, you know, should get on the same page and, you know, try to decide so that the residents have a better idea. But again, I think it would help people that weren't in town when that meeting happened to take a look at that study. It was a very good one.
Thank you.
Phil Apicino, Ravine Road. I'd just like to make a couple of comments on the construction for the new facility. I want to agree that, you know, I think I brought this up at the last meeting. I didn't think it was going to be cost-effective for the taxpayers to piecemeal the demo. I can give you some reasons why I feel that way. I'm sure this is a prevailing wage rate job. You're going to need at least 3 or 4 primes. So that means your electrician, your carpenter, your plumbers, HVAC, they're all going to be individual contractors. Somebody's going to have to supervise them. When you say we're going to demo certain parts of the building, I looked over the specifications, I looked over the drawings, and there's certain sections where you're taking down maybe a 50-foot section of wall, 2 or 3 walls. You may have some electrical circuits running through there that the electrician is going to have to come in first, disconnect those services on each end, but reconnect them to keep the services in the buildings operable. That's the same way with plumbing, might be the same way with HVAC. So there's quite a bit of coordination. Another thing, insurance companies hate when you're in business and you're a contractor is the word demo. So getting insurance, it might be more feasible to use the word removal. I looked at the structural requirements for the floor loads on this building, and in the gathering hall, I think it was 300 per square feet, 300 pounds. But again, it sounded like those still had to be designed on how you were going to get those floor loads, what you were going to do to go in the building, the existing building, how you're going to put in new beams to have those floor loads. So my other question is the demolition. Will any of this demolition affect the supports for those floors? You know, I'm not sure how far this was looked into, because walls haven't been opened up. There was some talk about the exterior walls, look like they have maybe 3 inches R11 insulation. I think the energy codes are at least 13 or R30 in the walls. They were talking about leaving that insulation. I'm not sure, is this new building going to be energy code efficient? That's something maybe you can ask the engineers. But just the idea of the demo taking place prior is a little concerning, and I don't think you're going to get the best price for the taxpayers that way. But again, if it was coordinated properly and you had the whole job bid out and you have all those trades on a site, instead of electricians sending a guy there for 2 hours to disconnect some wiring on one wall, he's already on the site doing other things. So you're going to get a cost savings there, and then the biggest thing you're going to do is when you're doing demo or removal, there are home runs from maybe electrical and plumbing that a contractor who's on that job may salvage and reuse those. So it's going to keep the cost of your construction down. Just some thoughts when you guys meet to go over. Just wanted to add. Thank you.
Kathy Kruger, Rawls Road, Pleasant Valley. Things shock me about this committee, continually shock me. First of all, things that move at a snail's pace in Pleasant Valley. PV committee, can't we vote on it tonight and just get this done so we can continue moving?
So it's proper to bring it up and get everybody's names that actually are on the committee, that want to be on the committee, and then we can simply vote on it. That's not a big deal. We can put that on next week,
Okay,
the next meeting.
so that we don't have to wait and wait and
Yeah,
wait.
I don't think that's a big deal.
Okay. So can we have it on the meeting then for the next, in 2 weeks, whenever the next meeting is?
Sure. If we have a list of the people that are on it, yeah.
Okay. Next thing is I applaud the people that live on Martin and Barber Road. If I got a horrible letter like that 2 hours before the meeting, I can't tell you, I would not have been as reserved as they would. And yes, we need a note that states you've got boards that should be used to warn people of such things coming up like that at a board meeting. That was nasty, is my word for it. To me, it's a lawyer's trick. I'm sorry. I just thought that was cruel. If I got something like that coming home from work or a doctor's appointment or something like that, it's just wrong. It is just wrong. And I applaud them for being as calm and as respectful as they were to the people that sent that note out. Okay, that's the other thing I wanted to say. I have a question. There are so many things that are on old business and never came up. What's going on with the pump over at the site here and the water pump? Has that ever been fixed?
I'm sorry, say that again?
The pump over here at the water pump.
As far as I know, that's the fire department's in their hands. to
Oh,
fix
yeah,
that
and I
pump.
can never ask about that because that's a fire department. Okay, it has nothing to do with our town that supplies water if we have a fire, right?
I mean, you can go to their meetings.
Okay, and you guys have nothing to do with it, right? Okay. How about Helen Aldrich? What's going on with that water drill going on over there?
So we've struck water.
I know, you told me that the last time.
Huh?
Yeah, you told me
Right,
that the
we
last
struck
time,
water,
right?
and I
And it's
believe-
only going at so many
believe it's being-
gallons a minute or whatever.
Well, you're asking, let me
Okay.
have a chance to answer. We struck water, and I believe we've met their minimum requirements or what they'd like, and they're just running it right now to see the clarity of it. And I believe the next step is to basically, yeah, he's got one more little thing to do with the engineer, and then we're ready to go.
And are we still going to spend $360,000 over there?
It's not going to be 360,000.
I hope to God
It's
not.
now been sized down to, I don't know the exact number, about 160 something, I believe. Plus, we've got a grant, and we also, I believe, we have to get 2 compost toilets for 2 other towns, 2
Yeah,
other
I
parks,
know
I'm
that.
sorry.
That's why I'm hoping we're not spending $360,000 out there.
No, it's not going to be that much.
Okay, because I mean, I know when you made your resolution, everything, you were putting $360,000 aside for that place, so I hope to God that's not going to be the case. Okay. Town water, where are we with that?
So, we had a very nice
Yeah, we
meeting.
had a,
Why aren't we, see, this is what I don't understand about this town and this board or whatever, or not just this board, other boards in the past. Why don't we ever get monthly updates, status reports about
Because,
what,
Kathy,
maybe
let
that
me
would
say-
help
let
with
me-
the town.
Let me stop you, Kathy.
Okay.
Let me save you a lot of aggravation, okay?
It's not just
because-
my aggravation,
No,
it's,
no, I know.
it's
Listen,
the
I live in
residents of this
too.
town
I
aggravation.
live in this town too.
Okay.
All the people on this board live in this town. We are no less frustrated at the pace of sometimes things go, okay? None, all right? I assure you that. And you know my frustrations as well. We've spoken many times. But things happen, things may be planned one way and it may not work out that way. And then we have to go another way. And our job as elected officials is to find, one, Michael always brings it up, what the cost for it is, what's the best possible plan for whatever we're working on, okay? That's our job. You voted us in to do that. In order for us to do our job effectively, it's not exactly the right thing to do on every step of the way until we have something to actually bring to you. And we have something we can actually bring to you on that, now that you brought it up, but we want to get a little bit more for it. So, I mean, it's not exactly something that can happen every single week. If we put everything that this town wants to do on this agenda, we have to start on Monday afternoon, and you'll be finished on Friday. That's how much work has to be done in this town. And that's just talking. That's just coming to this meeting and discussing it.
But I
Okay.
mean, when's the last time we heard about town water?
It's been a while.
Like
but we
6
had a lot of
months,
things that
8
were-
months? I mean,
We had a lot of things that we were waiting on. A lot of things.
so we are waiting for some answers from a bunch of the questions that John and I had from our last meeting with Greg and Emily, actually. And then I'm assuming by hopefully mid-next month, or even by the regular board meeting, not the workshop, but by the regular board meeting, we can actually talk about the plans and talk about the questions we've had. Hopefully we'll have answers, and we'll have even more answers to a couple of things.
Of which way, I mean, that particular project has 5 different options to choose from. And each one of them are very complex.
and then the town hall. Again, monthly reports about where we're going at that. That might have been able, if we could hear something, anything.
You know what I'm going to do? Hold on, I'm going to make a motion. I'd like to have a field trip. I would like to have a field trip up to there, so that people who think they know what's going on in that building, what the building's shape is, and what the condition of that building is, and all of that. I would like to have a field trip, and everybody can go up and all take a look.
I don't,
Huh? I'll buy hard hats, I don't care. It's just, half the people that are speaking
No,
on the building
well-
have no clue.
well, I think that I think a lot of Kathy's questions and everyone else's questions are gonna be answered just having us talk through them next, on the 22nd at 6 PM. I mean, honestly, I mean, we've been given plans, Greg gave us some nice plans of what the outside of the building could look like, but I think we gotta get down to the nitty-gritty to see where we're gonna go. And then honestly, once we figure out what we're Xing out here and adding in there, then we can actually really talk about a plan to build and then do a whole set of plans to bid.
I mean, you're sitting here and we're listening to you, and you're arguing about whether we're even supposed to be doing it or not. I mean, when we're sitting
No,
here in the
we're-
background and we're listening, it
Because-
sounds like, should we even be doing this?
And I think we've identified the fact that we don't have enough conversations about some of these big projects like this. And to your point, these should be discussions that we are having, and it shouldn't be at this point where we're still having these or things are coming out. And my hope is that these special meetings will force us to sit here and work through all of this, so we keep moving forward and we get this done, and it ends up being the best thing for the residents. Up to this point, we haven't really been having those real discussions, and I think we'll see how this first one goes. And I would be really surprised if you don't see us doing this at least every month now, going forward as this picks up steam. But I agree with you. I'm as aggravated as you are, because you probably know more than me, but.
Well, my perspective is I'm sitting here thinking, do you guys even talk to each other before you come to board meetings?
here, let
And
me-
if you
I was
thought,
just
and
about
if
to
you
touch on
talk
that.
to each other before
I
board
was just about
meetings,
to touch on that, hold on. We're not allowed to talk to each other like that, like you just think. We can't just sit around in a room and get together and discuss everything.
no, but I mean, there should be some kind of a discussion.
We can't
I
make,
mean-
We're allowed to do that.
we can't make decisions. We've actually
I'm not
been-
saying make,
More than two board
I, no, I,
cannot discuss town.
No, I get that. I've been on, yeah, right, I understand that part. But what I'm saying is there should be something about, a progress, status. You have committee meetings, there are people who are on this committee and people on that committee. There's got to be some kind of a status about what's going on, about the building. I mean, dear God, at least I know that the people over at the church here, at least I know that they are interested or have been interested in buying this building because they would like to have services here. They have a food pantry over there. They would like to combine our food pantry and that food pantry. So if they're interested in buying this building, so that's a thought too. If I know that, there have got to be other people that know that. So, I mean, come on.
Okay. So this is, this.
I'm not the only person that knows that
I know,
in
Kathy,
Pleasant
but
Valley.
for fairness to everybody else, you're really supposed to come up and have one item that you're supposed to talk to. You've covered a lot of them. I have to move you on.
All right, fine.
Okay, so is that actually a rule, like one topic? You want me to? Okay, all right, fine. You guys just skated out of that one. Okay, so then I will just pick the obvious one, Pleasant Valley Weekend, just because that's, what I'm most involved in right now. So, I didn't bring a pen, so I'm sorry. I put all my notes in my phone just as everyone was discussing. So some things to consider. And again, this is not my personal opinion. You guys do what you gotta do. But so Pleasant Valley Weekend is typically in September. Last September, we met the following October to have just kind of a follow-up meeting, what went well, what could we change. Then we met in November and started planning for this year's event. We did take December off. We've met in January, and that's not to speak of all the emails and the phone calls in between all of the committee members. So I only mention that because there's so much time, and I know everybody can say, yeah, we understand. You really don't. You just don't. There's just so much that's, having to contact the vendors because my first year on the board, which was a couple years ago, 3 years ago, we got a little bit of a late start, like Johnny had said, because of COVID, and they're booked. They're booked by, April, if not sooner. Even some of the vendors that I contacted in December and November, the really popular ones were like, thanks for thinking of me, but we're booked already for September of 2023. So, that's just something to keep in mind. Not to mention all of the time-consuming paperwork, the insurances, the background checks that all the vendors need, the Board of Health, the peddler's permits, and like I said, and that's on the vendor end. That's not ours, but it is, well, it would be yours. Just to follow up with, I guess it would be the committee to make sure that all of those things were done. So let's just say, for example, if I were next year, if I were the chairperson, but I was kind of under you guys, so that would just be just another step. Take it how you wanna. There's also, the town currently covers fireworks, the tents, and the police. There's also getting estimates for all the things that you guys don't currently cover, like porta potties and things like that. The parade, obviously, we all understood coming together this year on the committee that there will be some written changes, and certainly we're all wanting to work together to make sure that nothing crazy happens. Our committee is definitely a unique group of people. If it were some of the other town organizations that I have since become a part of, I certainly wouldn't have agreed to chair it, honestly. But I don't know that I would have even been able to stay on the committee just as a participant, as a volunteer. Everybody is very respectful, and, you know, things like that matter. As somebody else had mentioned, maybe even the supervisor, the fundraising that we do is immense, several thousand. So if it was going to become something that is a budgetary thing on the town's end, we get a few wonderful sponsorships that maybe donate $1,000 or more, $1,500. Certainly, they're all appreciated. We get $25, and they're all great. But coming from the town board perspective, I can't imagine that you guys would be able to put aside the several $1,000s that it takes to truly run that weekend. So we've had several of our volunteers on the committee for many years. I'm sure that anyone would be willing to speak to anybody if there were questions that you guys wanted to ask at any point. But I just wanted to specifically bring those things up. Thank you.
Thank you.
Greg Straley, Pleasant Valley. I was told at the last meeting that the attorney was going to address the issues.
Yeah, I'll speak to the board about that when you're finished with the comments.
Since Peckham is not, they went and got variances for that blacktop plant. They stated what the hours were going to be in the application. They're not abiding by anything that was stated to get the variances. So I'm asking for the town to reopen the approvals on the blacktop and for any other variances that they received, because I have the document here, and there's 4 items on it, and I got it stamped in on April 28th, 2022 by the town clerk. Item number 1 is 3 pages for the Zoning Board of Appeals. The meeting minutes, dated when that they got this approval, and stated their hours of operation, that they don't have to start early, that it's 7 o'clock. I mean, if, this is this is what's going on. It states right in there what time they were going to start and what time they were going to stop. So it doesn't matter if they have an early job or a late job. This is their hours of operation. This is what they got the variances on. And everybody can sit there and roll their eyes up there. I really don't care. Enough's enough. The town gave them the variances. They need to abide by them. That's all I'm asking. And on the second thing,
we talked to Pete Sotero, and Johnny Dell was in on this when Mark Fig was superintendent, that we wanted Pete Sotero to step in, the engineer, because I talked to Pete Sotero, and he says it needs to go back to the planning board because he was here when everything was done, and he insisted that they write the hours in on it. And we have the report on that, and everything's here. So anyway, there was, that's in the EAF. And like I said, I'd like to present this to the lawyer, and, we need to move forward with this, because this has been how many years this has taken place. And I mean, there's zoning, there's noise ordinance, and let's not forget that there's fumes that we're breathing in from that place. That's also in the ordinance. They're not supposed to be emitting fumes from their premises to mine or any other neighbor. It's in the zoning. It's clear. It's not supposed to be taking place. So we can go with the noise, but then you can also look at the fumes that we're all breathing in. Everybody can't stand we got to keep our windows closed up there all summer. As long as that blacktop plant's running, we can't open our windows. That's not right for the residents. And we can blame the planning board for letting this take place, because that's who gave them the variances.
Okay, you can sit down. I'm going to talk to the board.
And you'll address what we
I'm going
talked
to address
about?
what you just said, but I'm talking to the board, not to you.
Okay.
First of all, I've already made a determination that the representations that were made before the planning board when they got their variance are not binding. It's only what's in the permit. I've gone over this several times, I think, at the meetings. If this gentleman feels that there is grounds to reopen the planning board's original determination, that application has to be made to the planning board, not to the town board. The town board doesn't have any jurisdiction over the planning board. I investigated that claim, and the fact that they may have made some representations during the course of the public hearing, which were not followed by the planning board in the permit hours of operations. I don't think there's anything legally that can be done, but you can make your pitch to the planning board. With regard to the complaints about the operation, I've spoken to Sarah Davis, zoning administrator, who is the person in charge of enforcing the town code. She feels that there have not been sufficient complaints for her to investigate or enforce with regard to any violations. If there were violations of the noise ordinance or any of the other provisions of the law, she could enforce them, but she is not of a mind to do that. If you want to take it up directly with the zoning administrator, you can go to her office and discuss it with her, and maybe you can convince her to do otherwise. But the town board doesn't have any power or jurisdiction to enforce the provisions of the zoning code. That is the zoning enforcement officer in the first instance. So at this point, there's really not much I can do or the town board can do about these complaints.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Bob Yaremko. I'm Vice President of Peckham Materials, 410 North Avenue. A lot of good discussion tonight. Guess you can't let a meeting go by without bashing the quarry, though, or the hot mix asphalt plant. I've worked for the company for 38 years, professional engineer. We are a solid company, and we're proud to be part of the community, and we're here to help the community, and if we drop the ball in any way, we're here to make that right. I was part of all those planning board meetings. We never made any representation about hours. The road out in front of us, Route 44, has to be paved at night. The Taconic Parkway has to be paved at night. Vassar Hospital, other projects need concrete and materials at different hours of the day. We would never go before a board and say we are not going to run on off hours. Now, our guys and women don't like to work long hours and early hours, so we limit it as much as we can. But if New York State DOT or another entity needs materials at a certain hour, and a contractor chooses us, we don't put down our own materials, but if they choose us, then we sell the materials. So again, we never made representation that we were going to limit hours, and the variance was not granted for hours. It was granted for the height of the silos, and for that project. There's also been some misrepresentation made that we need building permits for repair of our equipment. Hot mix asphalt plants is a very simple operation. You take sand, stone, and liquid asphalt, you heat it together, and you put it in trucks. From April through December, the plant gets worn, and we shut down late December, and during the winter months, we go in and we repair the equipment. The town's code, chapter 39, calls out certain exemptions for building permits. I'll just read real quickly and I'll be done. 39-9 talks about exemptions. No building permit shall be required for work in any of the following categories. 8, replacement of any equipment, provided that the replacement does not alter the equipment's listing or render it inconsistent with the equipment's original specifications. We replace equipment. This is a hot mix asphalt plant. We don't alter it. We're not changing production. We're not changing how it operates. So I'm more than happy to go through that with anyone from the town. With that, yes, sir.
Can I be recognized to ask a question?
Sure, be recognized.
Just because you're here, I might as well ask you a quick question. So you said that the projects you work on, obviously Vassar, all these projects around need asphalt, concrete, different times of the day. My question for you, and obviously you should know, is the town of Pleasant Valley, we have 2 separate decibel levels for noise. So to his argument is he's complaining about noise spilling out outside of your facility. How is Peckham monitoring the noise output of your facilities when there might be a sensitive time? Let's say you're paving a road overnight. How do you monitor that to make sure that you aren't disturbing the neighbors, or are you monitoring that?
We monitor by talking to our neighbors. We don't go outside and run around with meters, if that's what you're asking. If we have neighbors' complaints, we work with them. We try to explain what we're doing. This Route 44 will be paved at night. We'll tell the town, we'll tell our neighbors, we're going to be open if we get chosen for the project for 3 nights.
Yeah.
So we monitor it by talking to our neighbors. I mean,
I guess my question is, how do you ensure that you're falling within the town code of the decibel levels?
Again, we rely on our neighbors.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Can I ask you a question? Yeah. If it is determined that there are valid complaints that the zoning enforcement officer has with regard to your hours of operation or noise or other problems with the running of your facility, are you willing to enter into a dialogue with the neighbors and the citizens of the town to see if those complaints can be addressed?
We talk to our neighbors all the time.
No, I mean in a formal session.
Of course. And we talk to our neighbors all the time. Some neighbors just don't want to talk back.
No.
They want to scream and yell.
Right.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Anyone else? Not hearing any or seeing any. I move we close the meeting to the public.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Do we have anything in executive session? Thank God.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.